Teiko Middle School had an incredible basketball team known as the Generation of Miracles. It included 5 talented players, and among them was Kuroko, known as the Phantom Sixth Man. His special move, misdirection, made it impossible for opponents to see his passing, leaving them confused about where the ball had gone. After arriving at Seirin High School, Kuroko met Kagami, a boy with a deep passion for basketball. Together, they became the dynamic duo known as the Light and Shadow, dominating the courts. With the start of a new school year, Seirin High School's club recruitment began again. This new school, only a year old, seemed to attract many freshmen. The upperclassmen were energetically recruiting the first-year students. The basketball club's sophomores, including Shinji, the team mascot, were distributing flyers with fellow sophomores Izuki and Rinosuke. Izuki tried to liven up the mood with a cold joke, but it only cooled the atmosphere. Suddenly, a tall figure approached Shinji. Facing the 2-meter-tall muscular redhead, Shinji felt a bit intimidated. This fiery redhead, one of our main characters, was Kagami Taiga. Kagami wanted to join the basketball club, so Shinji took him to Coach Riko to fill out the registration form. Meanwhile, Riko was discussing the new recruits with club member Hyuga, who seemed indifferent about the recruitment. Riko rolled her eyes at his attitude. When Shinji brought Kagami to fill out the registration form, Riko was immediately impressed by his height and aura. Kagami simply signed his name, wrote down his class and experience, and left, exuding a cool demeanor that left an impression. Kagami had attended middle school in the United States and had excellent physical conditions, making him a promising recruit. Another registration form caught Riko's attention. This new student, named Kuroko Tetsuya, came from Teiko Middle School, the powerhouse that produced the Generation of Miracles. Riko didn't remember him, but his skills were undoubtedly solid. This year's freshmen seemed exceptionally talented. Soon it was time to meet the new members. All basketball club members gathered in the gym, curious about their seemingly cute but slightly underwhelming coach, Riko. The older members smiled knowingly, aware that the newcomers were deceived by Riko's appearance. When everyone had arrived expecting a speech from Coach Riko, she instead asked everyone to remove their shirts. This unexpected request made the young men somewhat embarrassed, but they complied. Riko assessed their physique and accurately pinpointed each person's strengths and weaknesses, impressing the newcomers. Riko approached Kagami, stunned by his outstanding physical stats. She realized she had found a gem, perfect for basketball. This was indeed a treasure find for the team. Just when everyone thought Kagami was the last member to join, Kuroko suddenly appeared in front of Riko, startling her with his low presence. So low that he was almost overlooked. Kuroko casually took off his shirt as routine, leaving Riko speechless. Is this the standard of Teiko Middle School's basketball team? His stats are quite poor. How did Kuroko even make the basketball team, she wondered. That evening, Kagami was practicing alone on the court when Kuroko suddenly showed up, startling him. This kid always appears out of nowhere. It's really scary, Kagami thought. As a member of the Generation of Miracles, Kagami had been eager to challenge Kuroko. Kuroko, feeling the same, stylishly took off his jacket, expecting a duel of experts. However, Kuroko couldn't defend or make shots, performing poorly and leaving Kagami disinterested and walking away. Kuroko's intention was to test Kagami's skills, and from this, an idea formed in his mind. Soon, it was time for a practice match with the seniors. Kagami, representing the freshmen, played aggressively, and the seniors struggled to defend against him. To save face, they had to strategize. Hyuga, Izuki, and another player teamed up to temporarily contain Kagami. During this, Kuroko made his move, using misdirection to continuously pass the ball to his teammates, who performed well. Kagami was drawn to Kuroko's unique style, realizing he wasn't as weak as he seemed. Influenced by Kuroko, Kagami felt even more empowered. Coach Riko, watching the game, was shocked. Perhaps this was Teiko Middle School's brilliance, training players with low presence to mobilize the entire team. The score was quickly tied, and as the game neared its end, the seniors scrambled to score, but couldn't stop Kuroko. Kuroko attempted a shot, but missed slightly, only for Kagami to leap and dunk the ball, reminding Kuroko to aim better next time. Kagami's tone was unexpectedly gentle, possibly because he already considered Kuroko a teammate. The freshman won the game. The next day, Kagami passed by the library, mesmerized by a poster of the Generation of Miracles. Their prowess ignited his competitive desire to defeat them and become the best in Japan. As he snapped back to reality, Kuroko was already standing in front of him, increasingly startling. But that was unimportant to Kagami now. He just wanted the chance to play in games. He approached Hyuga, who told him he needed to become an official club member to play, which might initially only be as a bench player. To become a member, he needed Coach Riko's approval. So he found Riko, who handed him an application form and instructed him to meet her on the rooftop Monday morning to submit it. Monday quickly arrived, and Kagami went to the rooftop, only to find that he wasn't the only one applying for club membership. Kuroko and others were there too. Riko then shocked them with her next statement. She asked the boys to shout their names, classes, and goals on the rooftop. If they failed to achieve their goals, they would have to confess their love to their crushes while naked. The stakes were indeed high. Kagami stepped forward without hesitation, stood on the railing, and loudly declared his goal to defeat the Generation of Miracles and become the best in Japan. The others also proclaimed their goals loudly. When it was Kuroko's turn, he appeared with a megaphone. But before he could speak, the school's disciplinary head arrived on the rooftop and gave them a lecture on proper conduct. Kuroko was bothered that he didn't get to confess and was scolded instead. He decided to fulfill Riko's task in his own way by writing his goal on the playground. "I will make you the best in Japan." Kuroko had chosen not to attend a powerhouse basketball high school because he disagreed philosophically with the other members of the Generation of Miracles, who prioritized individual scores over teamwork. Unlike them, he wanted to build a team that thrived on collective effort. Later, he shared his thoughts with Kagami, acknowledging Kagami's exceptional skills, but noting his lack of maturity to defeat the Generation of Miracles. As Kuroko had always been a shadow-like figure in the team, he decided to become Kagami's shadow. The brighter Kagami shone, the deeper Kuroko's shadow would become. Kuroko believed that together, they would be unstoppable. Kagami was skeptical, but found Kuroko's idea reasonable and agreed to try it out, officially forming the Light and Shadow duo. Their previous practice game was just a warm-up. In a few days, they were scheduled to have another practice match with other schools to prepare for the upcoming national competition. However, an unexpected visitor arrived at their school. Kisei Ryota, a former Generation of Miracles player who was also a model. Excited to hear that his school's basketball team would be playing against Seirin, he couldn't wait to scout them out. As soon as he entered the gym, he was surrounded by throngs of female fans. During a break from signing autographs, he greeted Kuroko. He wanted to catch up with Kuroko, but was put off by Kuroko's aloofness. Kagami, learning that Ryota was a member of the Generation of Miracles, eagerly wanted to test his skills against him, but was instantly overwhelmed. Ryota's special move, Copy, allowed him to mimic and amplify an opponent's moves. Kagami was stunned by this, and Ryota, proud of his skill, even tried to recruit Kuroko to his team, but was rejected again. So, it was settled that they would meet in the practice match. The next day, Kuroko and his team arrived early at Ryota's school, Kaijo High School. Kagami seemed off his game, having stayed up all night excited about the match. Upon their arrival at the gym, they were greeted by a greasy middle-aged man, Ryota's coach, who informed Riko that the practice match was merely a training session for his players, and that half a court would suffice for them. After all, other players still needed to practice. Riko was furious, feeling that this arrangement completely underestimated Seirin. They would have to prove themselves on the court. What made it worse was that the uncle coach wasn't letting Ryota play, fearing he would easily defeat Seirin. This arrogance infuriated Riko, who was determined to make a point. As the game started, Kaijo's Kasamatsu initially grabbed the ball, thinking the first score was secured. However, Kuroko intercepted it midway. Kasamatsu quickly chased after him, only to see Kuroko pass the ball behind his back to Kagami, who scored a slam dunk so powerful he pulled down the basketball hoop. Riko hurriedly apologized to the opposing coach, while Kagami exclaimed about the size of the hoop, showing his naive side. Now, they had no choice but to request the full court be opened. For safety, Ryota was finally put into the game. At that moment, a crowd of Ryota's fans gathered at the gym entrance. While Ryota warmly greeted his fans, Kasamatsu kicked him back to reality and reminded him to retaliate against Kagami properly. Ryota responded with a beautiful dunk, earning 2 points. This ignited Kagami's competitive spirit, and both teams started a fierce scoring battle. Kuroko, with his low presence, created many scoring opportunities for his teammates. However, Ryota kept provoking Kagami with his copy skills, setting a fast pace that Seirin struggled to handle. Furthermore, Hyuga noticed that not only Ryota, but also the other 4 players were tough opponents. Although the score was close, the future of the game was uncertain, worrying Riko enough to call a timeout. Back in the resting area, the players were exhausted. Riko re-strategized, but Kuroko mentioned his misdirection technique would stop working after 40 minutes as everyone would gradually adapt to his presence. Riko was furious to hear this. Ryota also shared this point with his teammates. The game resumed, and Riko instructed her team to strengthen their defense, especially against Ryota, with multiple players marking him. However, this left Kasamatsu open, who seized the moment to score a 2-pointer. Kagami grew anxious and engaged in a duel with Ryota. They exchanged moves, but Ryota outmatched him, not only copying Kagami's fadeaway shot, but also blocking him. Ryota taunted Kagami, saying the score gap would only widen and that defeating the Generation of Miracles was a dream. At that moment, Kagami calmed down and realized Ryota's weakness was Kuroko. Ryota couldn't copy Kuroko's low presence, which he acknowledged but didn't care about. However, Ryota didn't realize Kagami was ready to counter. In the following play, Kuroko and Kagami coordinated closely, with Kuroko passing the ball to Kagami, who scored with a 3-step layup. From then on, Kuroko wasn't just Kagami's shadow, but the shadow of the entire team. He passed to Hyuga, who easily scored a 3-pointer, leaving Kasamatsu stunned. Seirin quickly racked up points. Ryota wouldn't sit back and watch. Surprisingly, it was Kuroko who defended him. As Ryota thought he could easily bypass the defense, Kuroko stealthily took the ball from behind, passing it to Kagami, who scored another 2 points for Seirin. Ryota was thrown off balance and, in a moment of panic, pushed Kuroko down. Kuroko's face was bloody, and he had to leave the court. Ryota looked guilty, but Kasamatsu was pleased with the outcome, as the freshman duo had been too dominant. In the second half, the sophomores led the offensive, with the mascot Shinji replacing Kuroko. Kagami and the others focused on defense, coordinating well, especially Hyuga, whose 3-pointers were exceptionally accurate. However, the good times didn't last. Due to exhaustion from the first half, the players began to falter. Without Kuroko controlling the pace, scoring became difficult, and the gap widened again. Riko was desperate, wishing Kuroko was there. At that moment, Kuroko asked to re-enter the game. With Kuroko's passing skills back in play, Hyuga scored a 2-pointer that tied the score. Ryota felt unprecedented pressure, and not willing to give up, his fighting spirit surged. He took a pass from Kasamatsu and dunked, pulling ahead again. Kagami was stunned. Ryota was getting stronger even under pressure. With only 3 minutes left, Hyuga, as captain, rallied everyone to score. The uncle coach also became anxious, urging his team to defend. The intense confrontation led to a tied score, but only 10 seconds remained. Riko realized her players couldn't endure overtime. Defense was no longer an option. They had to attack. Kuroko proposed a plan to Kagami to steal the ball and create a situation where Ryota couldn't mimic him. Kagami successfully stole the ball from Kasamatsu. Ryota immediately tried to defend, but Kuroko and Kagami both showed up. Ryota assumed Kuroko wouldn't shoot and focused all his attention on Kagami. However, Kuroko unexpectedly made a shot, actually a pass in midair to Kagami. Ryota jumped to block, but surprisingly, Kagami stayed in the air longer and scored. Seirin won by 2 points, breaking the uncle's bold claims and causing a major embarrassment. Seirin defeated Kaijo by a 2-point margin. Kuroko reveled in the victory, while Ryota was stunned, experiencing his first ever loss, and tears streamed down his face. Kasamatsu kicked him, reminding him that crying was unbecoming of a man and urging him to regain his spirit and redeem himself later. At lineup time, the team captains shook hands. Despite being just a practice match, it felt significant. After the lineup, Ryota showered by a water pool, and a figure approached him, Shintaro, a former member of the Generation of Miracles. Ryota hoped to catch up, but Shintaro, always blunt, critiqued Ryota's performance as monkey-like. and said his style wouldn't achieve greatness. Shintaro advised Ryota to give up on revenge, claiming only he could defeat Seirin, a bold statement. However, Ryota's attention wasn't on him, but on Kuroko, who was passing by with a bandage on his head. Ryota looked guilty, for Kuroko was one of the few friends he got along with. After leaving Kaijo Academy, Riko first took Kuroko to check his injury. Fortunately, it wasn't serious, and the team was relieved. Hyuga then suggested they have a meal together, as they were all drained from the game. However, after factoring in transportation costs, they only had 21 yen left and were about to head home when a passing truck inspired Riko. A nearby steakhouse was running a promotion, so Riko decided to teach the young owner a lesson by eating enough to get the meal for free. But their eating power quickly diminished. Just when everyone was feeling down, Kagami, known for his huge appetite, stepped up and finished all the remaining steak, likely infuriating the owner. While they were still eating, Kuroko stepped outside for some air and ran into Ryota, who had been waiting. They walked to a nearby basketball court. Meanwhile, Riko and the others came out of the restaurant but couldn't find Kuroko, so their search for him turned into post-dinner exercise, combing the streets. Kagami was drawn to a street basketball game and saw Ryota and Kuroko at the court. Ryota was telling Kuroko about Shintaro, cautioning him to beware of Shintaro's left hand, as his reputation as a top shooter was well earned. Kuroko was outwardly calm but touched inside. Ryota then asked the question he most wanted to know. Why had Kuroko disappeared after middle school? Kuroko admitted he didn't know, but explained that he had begun to doubt and even dislike basketball because of the Generation of Miracles' lack of teamwork and their overshadowing individual brilliances. However, meeting Kagami changed that, reviving his hope through Kagami's passion for basketball. Still, Ryota remained worried that as Kagami's talents grew, his attitude might change, potentially leading to Kuroko facing disbandment again. Kuroko was stunned by this possibility. Just then, Kagami appeared. Having heard the entire conversation, he didn't want to say much, just wanting to leave with Kuroko. Suddenly, a commotion arose from the basketball court. 3 boys who had been playing street basketball were being forcibly driven off by 5 others. Kuroko couldn't stand by, so he stepped in to intimidate the leader. Ryota and Kagami quickly joined him, and the 3 of them took on the 5, deciding the outcome with basketball. Despite never having teamed up with Kagami before, Ryota found their cooperation surprisingly seamless, and soon they had the aggressors down on the ground, crisis averted. Kagami then scolded Kuroko for intervening as they were outnumbered. Ryota, watching the light and shadow duo, felt genuinely happy for Kuroko, thinking perhaps Kagami was truly the right person for him. They agreed to battle again in the finals, and then went their separate ways. Kuroko, knowing Kagami had heard everything, asked for his thoughts. Kagami bluntly said, "You started by saying one person isn't enough, and that we weren't getting along well. But standing in the shadow of the light, isn't that your style of basketball?" With that, Kuroko knew he hadn't misjudged him. The next day at noon, everyone gathered in the gym to discuss the upcoming preliminary matches. The competition was split into 4 regions, with a single defeat resulting in elimination. From 300 high schools, only the top 3 teams would advance to the national competition. The competition was fierce, and Riko took it seriously, scouting the opposing schools early on. Not long after, Riko returned, visibly upset. It turned out that their first opponent, Shinko Academy, boasted a formidable foreign player, a 2-meter-tall Senegalese exchange student named Papa. Besides his height advantage, his long limbs made it difficult for others to defend against him. With only 2 weeks left before the preliminaries, the team entered intense preparation mode, focusing especially on Kagami and Kuroko, increasing their training load with daily runs and physical training. Additionally, Riko analyzed the tactical characteristics of their opponents. 2 weeks passed quickly, and the day of the preliminary matches arrived. During the warm-up, Kuroko and the others finally saw the towering Papa, who routinely bumped into doorframes. Tanemura from Shinko greeted them with a hint of arrogance. As Papa went to change, he tripped over something and found it was Kuroko. Lifting Kuroko with one hand, he mocked him as a child and scoffed at the Generation of Miracles for being defeated by a team of kids. After putting Kuroko down, he walked away, leaving Kuroko upset by the taunt. To cheer Kuroko up, Kagami was ready as the game began. Papa stole the ball before Kagami could, surprising even Hyuga, who noted that Kagami, typically known for his jumping ability, was bested in height. Then Tanemura passed the ball to Papa, who jumped without any fake moves, completely ignoring Kagami's defense and towering over him. Even Kagami was shocked by his height. Papa became a bit overconfident, while Hyuga, the team's moral support, encouraged everyone to keep pushing. When the opportunity arose, Hyuga prepared for a three-pointer without defense in front, thinking it was a sure score. But unexpectedly, Papa blocked the shot from a standing jump, covering a surprisingly wide area. Furihata and others from Seirin felt Shinko was cunning to have such a powerful foreign player, a sentiment overheard by Tanemura, who defended the use of a foreign player as legal and an easy way to score points, dismissing the notion of it being underhanded. Hyuga, annoyed by his smug sense of superiority, retorted, "Everyone has their ace players. We grow ours ourselves. We don't need to import them." Indeed, Kagami and Kuroko were more than capable of handling Papa. By this time, Kagami had effectively countered Papa, causing his shooting accuracy to drop significantly, which puzzled Tanemura. This was where Riko's brilliance shone. She had Rinosuke coach Kagami in defense. Since blocking Papa outright was difficult, they focused on disrupting his shots. Kagami's strategy was to wear down Papa's patience slowly, and it proved effective. Papa became irritable due to the disruptions, and the pressure on him increased. However, Kagami also faced significant pressure since Papa was much taller. Deciding to cut through the confusion, Kagami taunted Papa with a couple of sharp remarks, warning that even kids were not to be trifled with. At that moment, Rinosuke passed the ball close to Papa, who thought he saw a chance. Unexpectedly, Kuroko appeared and redirected the ball to Kagami, who dunked it, shattering all of Papa's illusions. Soon, the ball was back with Tanemura, who attempted to pass it to Papa, but was intercepted by Kuroko, who again assisted Kagami. Kagami dunked again, scoring consecutively, stunning everyone. Because Kuroko's passing skills couldn't be sustained throughout the game, Riko decided to substitute him to let his skills cool down. Other than Papa, the opposing team posed no threat, so as long as Kagami kept a tight defense on Papa, they could prevent the score from widening. In the second half, Kagami's potential was fully unleashed. Despite Papa's efforts, he couldn't break through Kagami's defense. Kagami's jumps reached new heights, shocking Papa. With only 5 minutes left in the game, Shinko scored a three-pointer, trailing by 6 points. Riko knew it was time to bring Kuroko back in. Refreshed, Kuroko's passing significantly eased the scoring for his team. Still, Papa was determined to outdo Kagami, but ended up being blocked by him just as the game concluded. Seirin won by 11 points over Shinko, with Kuroko not playing and Kagami in peak form, overpowering the opposition. The third match was against the group previously defeated on the basketball court. Perhaps out of respect, Kagami won this game easily. However, Seirin's next formidable opponent was Shintaro's Shutoku High School. The teams met in the gym in the afternoon. Kagami, excited, approached Shintaro to greet him. As Shintaro extended his hand, Kagami wrote his name and number on Shintaro's palm, a unique introduction that Shintaro likely hadn't seen before. Kuroko also came to greet Shintaro, who seemed indifferent and even disdainful, possibly due to Kuroko's sudden disappearance after middle school. Shintaro, confident he could dominate Kuroko, left without another word. In the afternoon, Seirin watched Shutoku's match. Shutoku seemed unpressured, leading by 30 points by the second quarter. Their captain, Otsubo, had strong inside defense, and their perimeter players appeared invincible. Last year, Shutoku had beaten Seirin badly, scoring 3 times Seirin's points, leaving Seirin players mentally shaken for a long time. This year, with Shintaro on their team, Shutoku was even stronger, making this year's game another tough battle. Notably, Shintaro's spot shooting was almost flawless. If he was in the right position, he nearly always scored. The basketball traced improbable parabolas in the air, leaving opponents defenseless. Ultimately, Shutoku achieved an overwhelming victory. Tonight, Seirin has another match against another exceptionally strong team. Besides that, they have to play 2 matches in one day during the semifinals against very strong opponents. Hearing this, Kagami was eager to compete again. The others sighed, but Kuroko and Kagami were both excited and couldn't wait to face the challenge. Somehow, These two had become perfectly in sync, perhaps a sign of their understanding. At this time, Kazunari obtained a game video of Seiho. He invited Shintaro to watch it with him, but Shintaro declined, maintaining his usual arrogance. However, after much persuasion, Kazunari finally got Shintaro to join him in the audio-visual room to watch the video. Meanwhile, Kagami and Kuroko were also studying a game video. Seiho's basketball strategy focused on defense, known as the best in Tokyo. One player, named Touou, was particularly tough. Nobody seemed able to get past his defense. Kazunari thought only Shintaro's precise shooting could match up against him. Kuroko remembered Touou from a middle school scrimmage, where he had heavily guarded Ryota, leading to a turnover due to ball holding. Not just Kuroko, but Shintaro also remembered Touou and admitted he did not want to face him in the upcoming games, as he was too difficult to handle. Kazunari felt regretful, thinking Seirin might not be able to overcome Seiho, likely missing out on the finals. He had hoped for a direct confrontation with Seirin, but now it seemed unlikely. Under Riko's guidance, the rest of the Seirin team also finished watching the game video, but their morale was low because Seiho's defense seemed flawless, leaving no room for attack. With Seiho's match scheduled for the next day, all players participating in the preliminaries were practicing. Observing Seiho's practice, their players were notably shorter, yet two players, Iwamura and Ryuhei, were exceptionally skilled. At that moment, Touou approached Kagami, mocking Seirin as a weak team, which made Riko want to punch the disrespectful guy. Fortunately, Iwamura appeared in time, apologized to Hyuga and the others, and Hyuga, taking the challenge, decided to play a match against him. Today, there was no match for Kaijo, so Kasamatsu and Ryota came to watch Seirin play. Possibly influenced by Shintaro, Ryota was also looking at morning horoscopes. Ryota was quite upset since Kuroko is an Aquarius. In the Seiho locker room, Iwamura was strategizing. Everyone knew about Kagami's strength, so he decided to have Touou guard him. In the Seirin locker room, morale was low. To boost spirits, Riko announced that if they won this match, she would reward them with a kiss. This statement made the players uncomfortably embarrassed, but Hyuga, trying to spare Riko any embarrassment, forced everyone to accept. This shattered Riko's heart, so she returned to her heroic self, demanding a win to avenge last year's humiliation by Seiho. The match started, and under Seiho's tight defense, Seirin failed to score in the first half of the first quarter, while Seiho had already scored 12 points. This significant score difference was disheartening, even shocking Ryota. Touou was guarding Kagami very tightly. The immense pressure prevented Kagami from getting into the game. Izuki snatched the ball from Kagami, attempting a direct layup, only to be blocked by Iwamura. Watching this, Kasamatsu analyzed that Seirin usually reacts rather than initiates, and Kagami is typically the first to find his rhythm. However, now even Kagami wasn't in form, making his performance crucial. That's all for today's episode. See you in the next. At this moment, Touou deliberately provoked Kagami, leading to Kagami committing a foul while handling the ball. Seeing Touou's smug expression, Kagami was infuriated. Kuroko quietly reminded him that he had already committed 2 fouls and needed to be more cautious. Soon after, Kuroko got the ball but couldn't find any passing options since every player was tightly marked. The overwhelming pressure troubled Kuroko, who sensed something off about Seiho's playstyle. Such intense defense would typically drain a team's energy. Riko noticed something from the sidelines and called a timeout. She explained to the team that Seiho's defensive style borrowed movements from traditional martial arts, with players running in a synchronized style of same hand, same foot motion, which conserved energy while oppressing opponents with their stifling defense. Inspired, Kagami asked Izuki to pass him the ball, determined to end this standoff himself, realizing that Seiho could still be deceived by feints. Izuki was worried Kagami might be too impulsive, but Kuroko trusted him, knowing Kagami was reliable in crucial moments. Ryota, watching from the stands, was nervous for Seirin, but believed they would not just passively take hits. The game continued, and Kagami directly faced Touou, who was somewhat overconfident in his ability to guard Kagami. Unexpectedly, at the moment Kagami received the ball, he exploded with power, leaping over Touou for a dunk, breaking the score drought and boosting morale. Ryota sensed that Seirin was poised for a comeback in this honor-driven battle. Meanwhile, in another part of the arena, Shintaro was scoring effortlessly for Shutoku, but then asked to be substituted just for a feel of the game, showing his whimsical side. Back at the Seirin vs. Seiho game, which was heating up, Kagami struggled to get the ball from Ryuhei and found no opening. Seiho's passing was incredibly fast, catching Kagami off guard as the ball quickly went into the basket. Later, when Togawa prepared to shoot, Kagami went up to block him but fell into Togawa's trap and was called for a foul. Admiring Togawa's quick reaction, Kagami realized he had underestimated him. With 5 minutes left in the first quarter and a 9-point deficit, Togawa was plotting to widen the gap. He bragged about last year's seniors' achievements and claimed they would exceed a 30-point lead over Seirin in the first quarter. Kuroko remained calm, determined to defeat Seiho. In the following plays, Kuroko's passing broke through Seiho's seemingly impregnable defense. Rinosuke caught the ball and scored a beautiful shot, dealing a heavy blow to Seiho. From that moment, Seirin improved significantly. Kagami intercepted Ryuhei's dunk, and soon the score was only a 3-point difference. Togawa tried to step up, but Kuroko unexpectedly stole the ball, passing it to Hyuga, who tied the score with a stunning 3-pointer as the first quarter ended. After returning to their respective rest areas, Iwamura felt annoyed at himself for underestimating the opponent earlier. He also told his team to reassess the game, recognizing that Seirin was indeed strong. On Riko's side, she warned Kagami not to commit fouls impulsively and urged him to intensify their offense. As the second quarter started, Togawa's defense on Kagami intensified. However, Kuroko appeared behind Togawa, and Kagami passed the ball to him. After bypassing Togawa, Kagami faced Iwamura but managed to dunk, scoring 2 points and outmaneuvering both defenders, refreshing Togawa's perspective on defense in the face of perfect coordination. At this point, Kagami was physically overburdened, indicating that the rest of the game might not go as smoothly for him. The game continued, and Hyuga passed the ball to Kagami, but Togawa didn't guard him, which felt off. Despite his suspicions, Kagami decided to shoot, falling right into Togawa's trap as Togawa pretended to fall, leading to Kagami's 4th foul. Hyuga decided to substitute both Kagami and Kuroko, surprising Kuroko a bit. However, this was a strategic move to prepare for later games, believing in their ability to defeat Seiho and needing to preserve Kagami and Kuroko for the match against Shutoku High School. Shinji and Satoshi were brought onto the court. After the substitution, Hyuga faced Togawa, who seemed still eager to compete. Hyuga, annoyed, nicknamed him Dog Monk on the spot. Togawa toned down a bit after seeing Hyuga's fierce demeanor. Forced to pass due to being guarded, Hyuga sent the ball to Rinosuke, whose successful shot brought the score to 30-31. Kagami was impressed by Rinosuke's quiet competence. Then, Rinosuke made another hook shot, widening the gap. Not to be outdone, Ryuhei responded with a scoop shot, keeping the scores tight. Seirin then developed an offensive mechanism centered around Hyuga and Rinosuke handling the shooting, with Izuki using his eagle eye to observe and find breakthroughs for his teammates. Shinji, known for his range though not accuracy, tried his luck with shots, but luckily Satoshi was good at rebounding to support him. However, Shinji's frequent misses nearly frustrated Satoshi. In the third quarter, the score was still 5 points apart when Shinji had an accident, prompting Kuroko's entry onto the court. With a hint of aggression, it seemed Togawa's easy time was about to end. Togawa, underestimating Kuroko, mocked the Seirin seniors. This provoked Kuroko, who vanished in the next second, startling Togawa. Kuroko passed to Hyuga, who successfully made the shot, shifting the momentum back to Seirin. Iwamura found it unbelievable as Kuroko intercepted another ball, passed it to Hyuga, and then to Rinosuke, who completed a dunk with clean, efficient movements, effectively breaking Seiho's defense. Togawa panicked as the rhythm was disrupted, making it difficult to counterattack. Hyuga and the team could anticipate Seiho's moves because they had fully understood their tactics, realizing that their so-called traditional martial arts movements could be predicted by watching the direction of their toes. Riko warned Kagami not to commit fouls due to impulsiveness and urged him to intensify the offense. By the second half, Hyuga and the others had fully adjusted, giving Seirin a good chance to win. Kagami, watching Kuroko play from the sidelines for the first time, was impressed by his precision and decisiveness, exclaiming in admiration, With 30 seconds left in the game, Seirin had taken the lead by 1 point. Hyuga led the defense, but Iwamura managed to outmaneuver them. Seiho then started a man-to-man strategy. However, Izuki found the right moment to pass to Kuroko. Suddenly, Togawa appeared, and Kuroko hesitated. Kagami's loud shout from the sidelines snapped him back to reality. He faked a move, then passed to Hyuga, who scored a buzzer-beating three-pointer to end the game. Togawa couldn't accept the outcome, but no matter how hysterical he became, the result was fixed, and he had no choice but to accept it. Meanwhile, Shutoku High School also finished their game, winning by a large margin. Seirin was set to face Shutoku High School next, and both Kagami and Shintaro were eager to compete. In the locker room, everyone was preparing for the upcoming game, except Kagami, who was sleeping, perhaps disheartened by missing the second half of the previous game. He was likely conserving energy for the next match. Kuroko encountered Kazunari from Shutoku High School in the restroom, who immediately noticed the low-key Kuroko, signaling a challenging matchup ahead. The game against Shutoku High School was about to start, and Shutoku was full of energy. Seirin, having just been through a tough game, was somewhat drained, but Hyuga instructed the team to give their all and not fall on the court. However, as soon as the game began, Shintaro started with harsh words for Kuroko, vowing to end him and show him how foolish his choices were. Kuroko simply replied, "I will definitely defeat you." The game started with Seirin in possession. Izuki passed to Kagami, who was unexpectedly blocked by Shintaro, showcasing his impressive skills. Shutoku then went on the offensive, but fortunately, Hyuga intervened in time to prevent them from scoring. The teams were evenly matched, each striving to gain the upper hand. Suddenly, the ball was with Shintaro, who scored a three-pointer from a set position. But in the next second, Kuroko made a long-distance pass to a teammate under the opponent's basket, who dunked it, instantly evening the score. Shintaro was at a loss for words, while Kuroko coolly said, "It would be difficult for me if you won this game so easily," frustrating Shintaro further. Kuroko's remarkable long-distance play impressed everyone, but it was not just about the spectacle. His strategy made Shintaro hesitant to commit to his usual spot shooting, as the long wait for the shot's outcome left them vulnerable. To prevent any surprises, Shutoku's team positioned everyone under the basket to rebound, leaving only Shintaro to defend. Now, with Kagami and Kuroko coordinating well, Shintaro found it difficult to manage on his own. Despite having a clear shot for a three-pointer, he passed the ball to Kazunari, cautious of Seirin's counterattack. After Kazunari passed the ball to Atsubo inside, Shutoku High School scored 2 more points. Was the score balance broken? Not at all. Kuroko then passed the ball to Rinosuke, who shot and instantly recovered the score. Shutoku's coach then instructed Kazunari to guard Kuroko. Guard Kuroko? That seemed impossible since Kuroko was virtually invisible on the court. But their opinions changed the next second because Kazunari, like Kuroko, specialized in passing and could predict Kuroko's every move. Shutoku scored several points as Kuroko was suppressed, and despite Kuroko's efforts, he couldn't escape being intercepted by Kazunari. This move by Kazunari shocked Kagami and the others, as Kuroko had never struggled so much with passing before. Izuki pointed out that Kazunari, like him, had the eagle eye ability, but with a broader observation range. Because their styles were similar, Kuroko's misdirection didn't work on him. Seirin called a timeout. Although they couldn't devise an immediate strategy, Kagami believed Kuroko wouldn't be easily defeated. Shintaro also shared with Kazunari his reasons for disliking Kuroko, surprisingly, because he recognized Kuroko's strength, which he felt was hidden unnecessarily, a concept Shintaro couldn't accept. It was odd to hear someone disliked because of recognition. Kuroko was still at a loss, but the game had to continue. Seirin was heavily pressured by Shutoku High School, relying only on Hyuga's three-pointers, a skill he had honed through countless figures, so Hyuga was determined not to give in. Meanwhile, Shintaro unveiled a new move, shooting beyond the midline to avoid Kagami's defensive returns. His accuracy and range astonished everyone. Kagami wouldn't sit back. He also attempted long-range shots. Though not as accurate, he decided to let speed determine the outcome, countering Shintaro in this way. The score was still 3 points apart, but suddenly the ball was back in Shintaro's hands, and he incredibly made a long-range shot from under his own basket, a seemingly impossible task. As the first quarter ended with the score widened again, Shintaro asked his coach to let him take all the shots in an attempt to crush Kuroko personally. Riko, before the next play, instructed Kuroko to tightly guard Shintaro. At the start, Kuroko positioned himself in front of Shintaro, planning a sneak attack when Shintaro tried to bypass him. Unexpectedly, Kazunari appeared and helped Shintaro smoothly get to the basket. Though Kagami was alert, Shintaro broke through and scored. Kagami and Kuroko tried an aerial relay, but were again intercepted by Kazunari. With him around, they couldn't execute their plays. They then changed tactics, spreading the focus. Hyuga made another three-pointer, but the ball quickly returned to Shintaro, who was setting up for another precise shot. Kagami could no longer stand by. He tried to block it, but was a step too late. Shintaro scored 3 out of 3, widening the gap by 12 points. If this continued, the team's morale could be devastated. However, a strange scene unfolded. Kagami was smiling, his aura full of determination. The real battle was just beginning. The Shutoku versus Seirin game continues. Shintaro's long-range shots dealt a critical blow to Seirin, as they found no way to counter them. Ryota's worst fears materialized when Kuroko was overpowered by Shintaro. After the second quarter, both teams retreated to their locker rooms. Confident about the upcoming game, Shintaro casually trimmed his nails while Seirin was less optimistic, the score gap widening and the team growing despondent. Riko had a bizarre idea to turn the tide, but Hyuga stopped her just in time. The game was toughest on Kuroko, whose flawless passing was easily intercepted by Takao. However, Kuroko didn't give up and sought to find Takao's weaknesses through game footage, though without much success. In the third quarter, Kuroko decided to watch from the sidelines, believing Takao had vulnerabilities. The game remained intense. An unexpected interception by Takao disrupted a pass meant for Hyuga. Takao's performance improved, and soon the ball was passed to Shintaro, who shot from a set point. Kagami leapt from the ground to block it. Though unsuccessful, Shintaro was shaken as Kagami jumped even higher this time, his limits still unknown. The scoreboard read 27-48, a significant gap. Kagami remained determined not to lose. Izuki then passed the ball out of sight to Shinji, who scored a 2-pointer. Takao quickly stole the ball, intending to pass to Taisuke, but decided to let Shintaro dominate Kagami again. At that moment, Kagami jumped, reaching higher than before and touched the ball, disrupting Shintaro's shot accuracy. Though the ball barely scored, it served as a stark warning to Shintaro. Meanwhile, Riko finally found a breakthrough. Shintaro's shots were forceful and simple, and Kagami's increased jump height was the best defense. The ball soon reached Hyuga, who scored a precise 3-pointer, boosting confidence in Seirin. Although Kagami found a way to defend against Shintaro and Takao's teamwork posed a challenge. Yet Kagami discovered a key factor. The longer Shintaro's shooting distance, the more time he took to prepare, allowing Kagami to anticipate and block effectively. This time, Kagami successfully thwarted Shintaro's long-range shot, marking Shintaro's first shooting failure. Izuki aimed for the rebound, but was surprised by Taisuke's dunk, scoring another 2 points for Shutoku. Riko initially wanted Shinji and Kagami to team up against Shintaro, but Taisuke now also posed a threat. Shinji's shot was blocked by Taisuke, forcing Hyuga and Izuki to defend against him together. Shintaro left a defensive gap, so the ball quickly reached him. Kagami rushed in recklessly and solidly blocked Shintaro's shot. Since Shintaro shoots from long range and was close to his own basket, Kagami seized the ball and immediately dunked it back against Shutoku. Kagami then entered a super mode, taking all the passes and scoring wildly. His incredible jumping ability stunned everyone, but Kuroko worried as Kagami began to play solo, straying from the team. If this continued, it might end the light and shadow duo. With just over a minute left in the third quarter and a 9-point difference, Seirin had a strong chance of winning. However, Kagami was physically drained and couldn't keep jumping. This gave Shintaro a chance to counterattack. Not just Kagami, but Hyuga and others were also drained from a previous game against Seiho, allowing Shutoku to widen the score gap. The third quarter ended with a 14-point difference. Back in the locker room, Kagami felt he alone could confront Shutoku. He believed that by scoring aggressively, he could win. When he voiced this, Kuroko punched him, leading to a brief altercation. Kuroko's next words calmed him, emphasizing that a victory not shared by all was meaningless. As the final quarter started, Kuroko decided to play. Though suppressed by Takao, he had found a breakthrough. Kuroko wanted to witness Seirin's victory with Kagami. The fourth quarter began with Takao mainly guarding Kuroko. The ball was passed between Hyuga and Kagami, with Shintaro and Taisuke guarding Kagami. Next, Kagami passed to Rinosuke, who scored a beautiful two-pointer. Shintaro noted Kagami wasn't fighting alone anymore, likely influenced by Kuroko's punch. Yet he wasn't panicked, as Kagami's energy was nearly depleted. Then, Taisuke passed back to Shintaro. Kagami defended again, knowing Shintaro wouldn't expect him to jump. Riko's strategy played out. Kagami's last two super jumps were reserved, one for the game's final moment and the other for Shintaro's first shot. This misleads Shintaro's team about Kagami's energy, making them cautious. Kagami blocked Shintaro's first shot, and Rinosuke scored another 2 points, reducing the gap to 10. The focus then shifted to Kuroko. Although Takao was confident in guarding him, he didn't know that Kuroko could manipulate his eagle eye by misdirecting him, effectively narrowing his field of vision. Additionally, Kuroko's passes changed in direction and increased in force, making them uninterceptable but easy for Kagami to catch. Facing Shintaro, Kagami used his last super jump to perform a perfect dunk. For the rest of the game, he had to bluff as his energy was spent, making Kuroko's teamwork crucial, something Kuroko fully understood. This was exactly the scenario Kuroko hoped to see. Takao was completely disorganized and couldn't defend against Kuroko anymore. With Kuroko's coordination, Kagami felt less pressure. Other teammates also collaborated with Kuroko to close the score gap. 2 minutes before the game ended, Shutoku called for a timeout. Their coach instructed the players to pass all balls to Shintaro, believing Kagami was too exhausted to pose a threat. The game resumed, but before Shintaro could touch the ball, Kuroko intercepted it midway. The ball was passed to Hyuga, who was ready to shoot when Taisuke blocked it. The ball returned to Shintaro, who made a set three-pointer, widening the score. Then, Mabuchi responded with a three-pointer. With 30 seconds left and only a 2-point difference, Hyuga needed to make a three-pointer to secure the win. Predicting this, Taisuke closely guarded Hyuga. Unfazed, Kagami screened for Hyuga, allowing him to reach mid-court. Taisuke was stunned, not believing Hyuga could make a three-pointer from such a distance. However, Hyuga proved him wrong with a precise and powerful three-pointer. With 3 seconds left, Shintaro attempted a game-reversing three-pointer. As Seirin's players were caught off guard, Kagami, despite reaching his physical limit, jumped again, stunning everyone. But in a twist, Shintaro had just feinted to exhaust Kagami's last energy for a counterattack. Unexpectedly, Kuroko anticipated this move, stealing the ball from Shintaro. As the game ended with Shintaro's astonished gaze, Seirin won. Reluctantly, Shintaro accepted the outcome and decided to cool down in the rain, receiving a call from his former teammate Daiki. He warned Daiki to be cautious, but Daiki claimed only he could defeat himself. Seirin was set to face Daiki's Gakuen High School next, promising another tough match. Daiki, similar to Kagami, was a gifted player with exceptional strength and skills, having been part of the generation of miracles with Kuroko. However, they parted ways due to differing philosophies. The upcoming game would reunite this former duo, sparking potential fireworks. After the game against Shutoku, Seirin's players were nearly incapacitated from exhaustion. Kagami couldn't stand, so Riko decided to take everyone to a nearby restaurant. They chose Kuroko to carry Kagami. Kagami was covered in mud, probably from a fall. There, they encountered Ryota and others. Due to the crowd, they had to share tables, coincidentally also joined by Shintaro and Takao, creating an unexpected reunion. So Ryota, Shintaro, Kagami, and Kuroko ended up sharing a table, creating an instantly awkward atmosphere. Shintaro broke the silence, noting that Ryota seemed different lately. Ryota agreed, feeling more integrated into the Kaijo team and not fighting alone, perhaps influenced subtly by Kuroko. Shintaro disagreed, believing such an approach would only bury one's talents. Kagami thought Shintaro was overthinking it, but before Shintaro could respond, a plate of okonomiyaki landed on his head. courtesy of Takao. Shintaro then dragged Takao out for a scolding. After dinner, everyone headed home. At that moment, Kuroko found a stray puppy. Riko was delighted, while Kagami, surprisingly afraid of dogs, cowered in the corner. The dog's eyes resembled Kuroko's, so they named it Kuroko Jr. The next day, Riko gathered everyone at the gym for training due to the upcoming game. But Kagami, nursing a leg injury, could only watch. Bored, he decided to play basketball secretly, thinking his injury had healed. But pain struck as he jumped. Then, a man challenged Kagami to a one-on-one. It was Daiki. Kagami wouldn't pass up this opportunity, despite Daiki's bad attitude, claiming he was just testing Kagami's skills for fun. This ignited Kagami's fighting spirit, and they started playing. Meanwhile, Riko took the team to the pool for strength training when a curvy girl appeared, distracting the team. She was Momoi, Kuroko's old acquaintance and the manager for the Generation of Miracles, who claimed to be Kuroko's girlfriend and hugged him, making the team envious. Surprisingly, she knew about Seirin's lineup despite it being her first visit, shocking everyone. Her arrival disrupted the training, so they paused to let Kuroko catch up with her. They reminisced about their middle school days. Momoi hoped Kuroko would defeat Daiki to change his arrogant attitude, and Kuroko agreed. Meanwhile, Kagami struggled against Daiki, who harshly stated Kagami wasn't suited for Kuroko, as Kuroko, the shadow, needed a stronger light to shine, and Kagami's light was too weak. Hearing Daiki echo Kuroko's words stunned Kagami, unsure if it was the taunt or jealousy over Daiki being Kuroko's former partner that affected him more. After their match, Daiki returned to school not for practice but to freeload, which infuriated the captain, Kausuke, who tried to force Daiki to stay in contact. Unexpectedly, Daiki dunked so hard he broke the hoop, demonstrating with his strength that rules could be bent, then left without looking back. Kagami returned before everyone finished training, but Kuroko Jr. seemed to smell something off and barked. Riko also noticed something was wrong. Kagami's performance indicators were poor, likely because he had sneaked out to play basketball. Riko exploded in anger and started hitting and kicking him, furious about him playing basketball during his recovery period. After leaving the gym, Kuroko walked with Kagami around the campus. Kuroko was curious about what had driven Kagami to play despite his leg injury. Then, Kagami revealed his encounter with Daiki. Besides this, Kagami was also curious about Kuroko's past with Daiki, wondering why Kuroko had left despite their good teamwork. Kuroko's memories took him back to middle school, when he and Daiki were the top duo of the Generation of Miracles and close friends. Daiki wasn't always a top player but developed rapidly after joining the basketball team, even surpassing talented players like Ryota in matches. Eventually, Daiki's brilliance overshadowed others, and he began losing interest in basketball, frequently skipping practice. Kuroko was concerned, but Daiki felt unbeatable. In one game, despite Kuroko's support, the opposing team didn't resist Daiki, leading him to become disillusioned with basketball and play without passion. Disappointed in Daiki, Kuroko left the Generation of Miracles. After hearing this, Kagami was furious about Daiki's arrogance and made a pact with Kuroko to defeat him. Their next game was against Daiki's school, Gaku-en Academy. Everyone was actively preparing for this match, with Riko staying up nights to develop strategies. On the day of the game, Daiki was late again, which infuriated Momoi, but they had to start without him. Meanwhile, Seirin was gearing up with pre-game cheers. Soon, the teams met on the court. Kagami was displeased with Daiki's absence. Gakuen's Shoichi remarked that they were just the opening act. The game started with Gakuen's kickoff, and the ball went to Shoichi. After tight defense, Shoichi passed to Sakurai, a seemingly gentle kid but an excellent shooter, scoring a three-pointer for Gakuen and putting Seirin under pressure. It was clear that not only Daiki but also Gakuen's other players were formidable. Although Daiki was absent, Gakuen's strength was evident. Shoichi, after receiving a pass from Kosuke, dunked immediately, overwhelming Izuki, who was waiting under the hoop. Just 4 minutes into the game, the score was 10-4 to Gakuen. Seirin had hoped to build a lead before Daiki joined, but now it seemed unlikely as Gakuen was dominating. Riko watched nervously from the sidelines, realizing from past games that Gakuen was a highly aggressive team, and Seirin's players might struggle to keep up. At this point, the score on the court kept widening. Sakurai, skilled in shooting, scored again. He combined his jump and shot, catching Hyuga off guard and leaving no time for defense. Although Sakurai sometimes missed, His teammates were quick to rebound, rendering Seirin's defense ineffective. After this exchange, Kagami realized that the opposing team did not prioritize teamwork. Instead, they played individually but were consistent and aggressive, explaining Gakuin's rapid rise thanks to these talented players. Izuki, surprised by Gakuin's basketball style, was not ready to give up. He bypassed Shoichi's defense and passed the ball to Hyuga, who scored a beautiful three-pointer. Seirin would not be easily defeated. Shoichi knew Seirin was tough and intensified his offense. He made a long pass to Kusuke, who ran towards Seirin's basket. While Shoichi and Izuki bantered, Kuroko quietly approached Kusuke. Kuroko startled Kusuke and jumped to intercept the ball, but he couldn't reach it. Fortunately, Kagami was there to block the pass and then passed it to Izuki. Kagami's jumping ability amazed Kusuke, who hadn't expected such power. Kagami thought Kuroko was out of his mind for trying to jump and told him to stay grounded if he couldn't make it. Kuroko paused and simply replied, "I actually can jump." Kagami let it be. That's all for today's episode. See you in the next one. Was Gakuin now at a disadvantage? Not quite. They had another ace up their sleeve. Momoi. She was more than just an agent. She was also Gakuin's intelligence officer. She analyzed the opposing team's data and could predict the players' development, preparing strategies and responses accordingly. Gakuin's players were well prepared. Gakuin's defense was tight, and Kagami struggled to move. He threw the ball hoping for an alley-oop, but the defense blocked his path. The ball reached Rinosuke, who tried a close-range hook shot only to have Kusuke block it. The opponents had anticipated their moves. However, Riko was not in a rush to adapt. She knew Momoi's data was based on past performances, and people can change. An element of surprise could turn the tide. Hyuga had prepared for this moment. Although skilled in three-point shooting, he had recently improved his dribbling. Facing Sakurai's defense, he planned to use a feint to shake off Sakurai before dribbling to a good shooting position. But Momoi had anticipated this too. As Hyuga made his feint, Sakurai was ready to defend. Izuki was stunned. This was Hyuga's new move, which the opponents should not have known about. This demonstrated the power of Momoi's data analysis. Hyuga had to pass the ball to Izuki, whose hawk eye expanded his observational field. At that moment, the score continued to widen. Izuki refused to be passive. He dribbled past Shoichi and passed the ball to Hyuga. Sakurai tightly guarded Hyuga, but at that moment, Kuroko suddenly appeared behind Sakurai. Taking advantage of Sakurai's distraction, the ball was passed to Kagami, who dunked it for 2 points, narrowing the score difference to 6. With just over 2 minutes left in the first quarter, there was a good chance to even the score. By the end of the first quarter, the score was 21-25. Given Momoi's strong data analysis, Riko decided to focus on Kuroko and Kagami, since their data was scarce and less likely to be thoroughly analyzed by Momoi. At the start of the second quarter, Kuroko executed a superb pass, and Kagami, waiting under the basket, quickly jumped and dunked, overpowering the defense of 2 players. However, upon landing, Kagami felt severe pain in his leg, indicating his previous injury had not fully healed. Riko quickly substituted Kagami with Shinji, despite facing ridicule. She prioritized the player's health over the game. Without Kagami, and with Momoi's thorough analysis of Hyuga's and others' tactics, attacking the inside became increasingly difficult. Hyuga and Izuki were somewhat disoriented as the score gap widened. After bandaging Kagami, Riko prepared to send him back into the game, reluctantly allowing him to play injured. Kagami didn't see playing hurt as a big deal, especially if his absence could cost them the game. However, the upcoming game would not be easy, as Daiki arrived. With 1 minute left in the second quarter, Gakuin's coach insisted on putting Daiki in. Daiki, looking defiant, was ready for a direct confrontation with Kagami. Upon Daiki's entry, all Seirin players became highly alert. The game continued with Gakuin starting aggressively. All players focused on half-court, creating a strong imbalance. This was intentional, meant to facilitate a showdown between Daiki and Kagami. Daiki easily broke through Kagami's defense, disregarding Hyuga as if he were merely a fixture. Daiki leapt for a layup, but at that moment, Kagami jumped from a standstill and blocked it, surprising Daiki with his speed. However, Daiki didn't see it as a major issue. The ball reached Hyuga, who accelerated his attack, but the opponents quickly fell back in defense. Mibuchi passed to Izuki, who found no open passing lanes. Kuroko then appeared, took the ball, and rapidly passed it to Kagami, who went for a layup. Daiki, having waited, jumped and blocked Kagami's shot. The second quarter ended with Daiki still eager for more. During the 10-minute halftime break, each team retreated to their respective locker rooms. Gakuin's atmosphere was relatively relaxed, thanks to having their ace Daiki. However, the coach still discussed strategy, emphasizing their aggressive approach. In Seirin's locker room, Kuroko impulsively requested to play the entire second half, eager to defeat Daiki. However, his misdirection passes could not last long, making his plan impractical. To calm him down, Kagami stuffed a lemon into Kuroko's mouth, reminding him that basketball is not played alone. Thus, Riko decided that Kuroko would rest during the third quarter and return in the fourth. On the court, Kagami was tasked with guarding Daiki, while the others focused mainly on Sakurai and Shoichi. After regrouping, they returned to the game, where the showdown between Daiki and Kagami officially began. At the start, Kagami faced Daiki head-on. Daiki quickly maneuvered around Kagami, who couldn't react in time, and reached the basket. Although Mibuchi and Azuki quickly shifted to defend, they couldn't match Daiki's attack speed. However, just as Daiki went for a dunk, Kagami timely blocked it. Following this, Hyuga passed the ball long distance to Kagami, who ran towards the opponent's basket. Daiki quickly followed and, at the moment Kagami dunked, returned the favor with a block. Both players were unyielding. Kagami's jump from the free throw line was unexpected, but such formal play was somewhat unfamiliar to Daiki. Breaking away from convention, Daiki used street basketball techniques to bypass Kagami's defense. With no set rules in his play, Kagami was unsure how to react. 3 players guarded Daiki under the basket, thinking they had him covered. But Daiki threw the ball over the hoop in a shot that stunned everyone. Kagami faced Daiki again, his eyes showing slight panic, while Daiki quickly passed him again and jumped in a strange posture. His clean hook shot easily scored 2 points. The ball was now with Hyuga, who attempted a 3-pointer to recover the situation. However, Kusuke had already read his intentions and intercepted in time, thwarting Hyuga's plan. Daiki, who had grown up playing street basketball, had unorthodox handling and speed that didn't conform to rigid styles. His unpredictable play style made it difficult to anticipate his moves, let alone guard against him. With Kagami's current abilities, it was hard to defend against Daiki. The ball returned to Daiki, who threw it seemingly recklessly, just to distract Hyuga while he accelerated his attack. Kagami hurried to block, and although he jumped higher, Daiki leaned back and executed a hook shot, nullifying Kagami's efforts. Hyuga, as a shooter, was amazed that Daiki's shooting form and height were never consistent, yet he never missed. Realizing he couldn't match Daiki's speed, Kagami tried to dominate in height. However, as soon as he jumped, Daiki stole the ball. Daiki then started a fast break, with Kagami desperately chasing. Even though Kagami caught up, he didn't expect Daiki to change his shooting form again. Daiki tossed the ball upwards with his right hand, sending it over Kagami's arm into the basket. After landing, Daiki taunted Kagami, telling him not to delude himself about defeating him. He also invited Kuroko to come on and settle things. With the score now 20 points apart, Kuroko entered the game, calming Kagami considerably. Upon receiving the ball, Kuroko instantly turned and executed a very long pass. Kagami caught the ball and headed towards the basket, but Daiki was close behind. Kagami then unexpectedly passed the ball backhanded to Hyuga, catching the opponents off guard due to their lax defense on him. Hyuga's 3-pointer went in smoothly, bringing hope to Seirin. Even Sakura, a fellow shooter, was impressed by Hyuga's precise and powerful shooting. Immediately after, Gakuin made a passing error, and the ball ended up with Kuroko. He quickly passed to Izuki, and Seirin scored another 2 points. Daiki realized the seriousness of the situation when Kuroko joined the game, changing Seirin's dynamic instantly. However, he was somewhat disappointed in Kuroko, seeing no difference from their middle school days, and was confident he could defeat him. In the ensuing play, Daiki easily intercepted Kuroko's long pass and then dribbled past 5 players to dunk the ball. Daiki was unstoppable, and Seirin couldn't contain him. Under his aggressive play, the score gap widened to 40 points by the fourth quarter. Then Kagami aggravated an old injury. Riko had no choice but to substitute him. Kagami sat fuming on the bench, his anger palpable even to players like Kusuke on the court. Without Kagami, Seirin's fighting spirit significantly weakened, and Kuroko's misdirection passes began to fail. Everyone on Seirin struggled greatly. Gakuen continued with their individualistic approach, and the score gap continued to widen. Mibuchi considered substituting Kuroko for Shinji. But just then, Kuroko faced Daiki. With the score far apart, Daiki urged Kuroko to give up. Kuroko replied that nothing was decided until the last second, so he would not give up. Inspired by Kuroko's determination, Hyuga abandoned the idea of substitution. However, Seirin remained very passive in the game. Despite their efforts, the score difference only grew. Finally, Daiki dunked to end the game, and Seirin lost by 60 points. Despite the loss, everyone had given their all, so there were no regrets. After the game, both teams returned to their locker rooms to pack up. Daiki won but didn't seem happy, perhaps because his opponent was Kuroko. Meanwhile, a bench player harshly criticized Kuroko's skills, which Daiki couldn't tolerate, and ended up confronting him. In his heart, Kuroko still held a significant place. At Seirin, the mood was somber. There were 2 more games to play, and everyone went to warm up. Kuroko was left pondering, and before leaving, Kagami said to him that even team cooperation couldn't win against overwhelming strength. Kuroko was stunned by these words, fearing that Kagami was becoming the second Daiki and might leave the team. Kagami didn't play in the next 2 games, and Kuroko was also not in good form. They lost both games and missed the national tournament. On the way back, Riko sent a text message to someone, Teppei Kiyoshi, the founder of Seirin's basketball club and its strongest center, who had been recovering from an injury but was planning a comeback. Back at school, the team resumed their regular training, but Riko tripled the training intensity. Despite 3 consecutive losses, fortunately, the players' spirits were not affected. Kagami hasn't been to practice for a long time, and he hasn't even been seen by the trainees. Kuroko also hasn't spoken to Kagami in a long time. The last time in the locker room, Kagami said something that Kuroko couldn't help but care about. One evening, Kuroko was practicing alone in the gym when someone suddenly entered. He looked absent-minded but enjoyed playing with Kuroko Jr. This person was Teppei, who greeted Kuroko and expressed his admiration for him. He knew Kuroko was a clear-headed person, but warned that being too clear-headed could lead to pessimism. He hoped Kuroko would cheer up. The next day, Kagami appeared in the gym. Kuroko still didn't speak to him. Although Kagami participated in the training, he seemed to be back to his initial state when he first joined the team, just playing basketball by himself. Teppei, aware of Kagami's talent, thought he was misusing it and decided to challenge Kagami to a one-on-one game to test his strength and to impart some wisdom. So, would this quirky senior be able to defeat the freshman? Let's wait and see. With Teppei's return, Seirin's resurgence is just around the corner. He is a key player. Even Shutoku's center Taisuke and sharpshooter Shintaro highly regard his abilities. Teppei and Kuroko share the same never-give-up attitude. At the Seirin gym, Kagami and Teppei's face-off continues. Teppei swiftly bypasses the defense and dunks, but Kagami quickly blocks it. This round changes both players' perspectives. Kagami is surprised by Teppei's speed, and Teppei admits Kagami's impressive jumping ability. Kagami then drives and dunks, ending the game. Teppei yields his starting spot to Kagami, who doesn't seem pleased and just walks away from the gym. Riko is unhappy with this outcome, since Teppei is a valuable veteran for Seirin. Hyuga realizes Teppei intentionally lost to motivate Kagami to stop going solo and integrate with the team. Teppei admits this, causing confusion among the team. Before summer break, a 3-day practice session for first years is planned. Teppei's actions aim to address Kuroko's secretive nature and clear misunderstandings between him and Kagami. The practice starts with Kagami telling Kuroko not to pass to him. Despite a slow scoring pace, Seirin wins, but Kuroko is not happy. Riko questions Teppei's decision to let freshmen play, but it's all for Kuroko, who thinks he's reached his limit. Teppei wants to challenge this belief. Kuroko considers becoming a bench player, feeling he hinders the team. Hyuga scolds him and urges him to talk to Kagami, who trusts him deeply. Kagami feels his skills aren't enough to maximize Kuroko's potential and wants to strengthen them. After clearing up misunderstandings, Kuroko realizes his earlier thoughts were foolish and is eager to share his true feelings with Kagami, who is practicing on the court, thinking of ways to enhance his basketball skills. He believes in maximizing his abilities to compete with the generation of miracles. Just then, Kuroko suddenly called out to him. Their meeting was a bit awkward. Kuroko struggled with his words, so Kagami suggested they play basketball while talking. Unfortunately, Kuroko was no match for Kagami, who scored 14 straight points. Kuroko was too busy playing to organize his thoughts, so he just started speaking his mind. He first apologized to Kagami for lying. Initially, he said he wanted to be Kagami's shadow for selfish reasons. He hoped to use their teamwork to defeat the Generation of Miracles. Kuroko, once known as the Phantom Sixth Man of the Generation of Miracles, felt insignificant as their trust in him waned, and they chose to shoot rather than pass in crucial moments. This wasn't the basketball Kuroko wanted. However, after meeting Kagami and the seniors, his views changed as he experienced trust and joy in playing together. He no longer wanted to help someone become Japan's best through his efforts alone, but wanted to win together with everyone. Kagami wasn't surprised by this revelation and chose to keep trusting Kuroko, believing they would become strong enough to defeat the Generation of Miracles someday. Their friendship was truly enviable. Summer was approaching, and Riko and Hyuga had planned a training camp involving 2 training sessions, one at the beach and the other in the mountains. The thought itself was exhausting, but recently, Kuroko and Kagami's interactions had improved the team's atmosphere. As summer began, the team arrived at the beach. After settling in, they started a beach basketball practice. The soft sand increased the resistance to running, and dribbling was nearly impossible, so they had to run with the ball. Kuroko couldn't use the ground to pass effectively, and Kagami's favorite dunks were ineffective on the soft sand. After a morning of practice, they felt much lighter and more agile indoors in the afternoon, showing Riko's strength training was effective. The next morning, Kagami ran into Kuroko, who sported a messy hairdo by the poolside. Then, surprisingly, they encountered Shintaro and Takao as Shutoku was also there for training. The teams took this chance to have a practice match, but Kagami didn't play as Riko had him run errands under the guise of buying drinks. Shutoku seemed stronger than before. Kuroko tried to dribble past Shintaro but was intercepted by Takao, who passed it back to Shintaro for a game-ending 3-pointer. Now focusing on improving his dribbling, Kuroko was mocked by Shintaro, who found it absurd that someone who couldn't fight alone talked about getting stronger. After the practice match, everyone returned to their rooms, and Kagami finally completed Riko's task of buying drinks. The convenience store was 500 meters away, and he had to run multiple trips. Riko praised the sweaty Kagami, though he returned too late and missed out on hot water for a shower, which was a bit tough. Finally, the last day of the camp arrived, and as usual, they played a practice match against Shutoku. Despite their efforts, they still lost. During the camp, the 2 teams played 3 matches, with Shutoku winning each time. This made Takao somewhat arrogant, attributing their previous losses to chance. However, the coach disagreed, noting that Kagami was absent from all 3 games, and Shutoku only won by a narrow margin each time. If Kagami had played, the outcomes might have been different. Seirin is still growing, so they cannot be complacent. After leaving the gym, Hyuga and the others were summoned by Riko to the yard where ice buckets were set up to help relieve muscle soreness, a stark contrast to what looked more like a punishment. That evening, Kagami practiced alone on the court. Riko approached him, and Kagami, remembering the previous day's errand to buy drinks, complained a bit. Riko internally scoffed at Kagami's grudge-holding, despite her best intentions. She then asked Kagami to jump and touch the backboard. His jump was higher than normal. The force was so great that he knocked over the basketball hoop, nearly hitting Takao, who was passing by. The height was astonishing, reaching the top of the backboard. Riko explained that his true strength was his jumping ability. Kagami lay on the ground, pondering. However, Shintaro demonstrated that relying solely on aerial tactics wouldn't defeat them. Kagami was unconvinced and challenged Shintaro to a defense game. Shintaro agreed, stating that if Kagami scored even once in 10 attempts, he would lose. Despite Shintaro's prowess in 3-point shooting, his defense was formidable. Kagami timed his dunks well, but Shintaro consistently blocked them just before the dunk. Frustrated, Kagami wanted to continue, but Shintaro insisted that the outcome would always be the same because he knew Kagami would dunk at such heights, and Kagami lacked other shooting techniques from that position. After the match, Shintaro walked to the bushes to dismiss Takao, who had been watching for a long time. Kuroko was also there, and Shintaro told him not to disappoint at the Winter Cup, perhaps still holding some expectations for Kuroko. Displeased by Shintaro's lecture, Kagami went for a run on the beach alone. Kuroko followed to comfort him, but Kagami, ever so proud, felt no need for consolation. He understood Shintaro's point. His right leg's strong jumping force required left-hand ball control, which Kagami lacked. He realized he needed to train his lower body strength and left-hand ball handling. Hearing this, Kuroko recalled Shintaro's words about maximizing individual potential and realized that passing alone was not enough. He decided to find his own dribbling style, marking a new direction in his basketball approach. This could be his limit. Besides Kagami and Kuroko, the other team members were also training hard to turn the tide in the upcoming Winter Cup. The next day the camp ended, and the players prepared to return home. But Riko called them back. It turned out that the national quarterfinals were being held nearby. Today, Kaijo High School was facing Gakuen Academy, so Riko planned to take them to watch the game. On the bus to the venue, Shintaro asked Kuroko to relay a message to Kagami. Don't lose to anyone before losing to him. Kagami laughed, finding the challenge not so easy to meet. They soon arrived at the venue, where today's game was a showdown between Ryota and Daiki. Kagami wanted Kuroko's opinion, but Kuroko was unsure, as this was the first matchup between the two since graduating middle school. Ryota had started playing basketball because of Daiki and had never won in their frequent one-on-one games. Both players had improved, so the outcome was difficult to predict. Inside Kaijo's locker room, the players were nervous and erratic, and Captain Kasamatsu was trying hard to stabilize their emotions, though he was also very tense. The coach, usually casual in appearance, was now meticulously dressed, which was a bit unusual for the players. Kasamatsu stepped outside to get some air, followed by Ryota, who promised his captain that he would win against Daiki this time at all costs. In Gakuen's locker room, there was no sign of Daiki until the last moment, which made everyone think he was going to be late again. However, he appeared just in time, determined not to miss the game against Ryota, one of the few people he truly wanted to defeat. The teams took to the court. Ryota and Daiki exchanged a few words and tough talk. Kasamatsu appeared composed, briefing his team on tactics. With the whistle, the game began. Ryota was not only handsome, but also athletically gifted, which often left him uninterested in sports due to his high talent. It was only when he met Daiki, who was incredibly strong, that he felt challenged. Since joining the basketball club in middle school, Ryota had never beaten Daiki. But in this national competition, he was determined not to lose again. As soon as the game started, Ryota quickly bypassed Daiki's defense, but Daiki wasn't going to let him off easily. He sneaked up behind Ryota and stole the ball, passing it to Shoichi, forcing him to pass to Sakurai, who shot a quick basket that didn't allow Kaijo any chance to rebound, giving Gakuen an early 3-point lead. The ball went back to Ryota, with Daiki ready in defense. Ryota took a quick jump shot, mimicking Sakurai's earlier move, surprising Sakurai with his quick learning. However, Daiki anticipated this and jumped to slightly touch the ball, disrupting the shot. Kagami, watching from the stands, was amazed that Daiki could reach such height. Shoichi, feeling confident while dribbling, got a bit carried away, but Kasamatsu intercepted the ball mid-court and scored a 3-pointer, instantly evening the score. Kaijo wasn't one to be easily dominated. Kasamatsu then instructed the team to tighten their defense. However, Ryota was pressed down by Daiki in 2 plays, which really annoyed Kasamatsu, leading him to give Ryota a metaphorical kick to boost his performance. Because of Kasamatsu's last shot, Kaijo's morale greatly increased. At this moment, Daiki and Ryota faced off again. Ryota's defense was flawless, but Daiki used a series of feints and quickly bypassed Ryota. Unexpectedly, Ryota quickly caught up, displaying incredible speed. He performed a no-look shot that soared towards the basket. Ryota, energized, leapt and blocked the shot, leaving even Daiki stunned at how high Ryota could jump, and Ryota quipped back, reminding him that he knows Daiki best from their one-on-one games. Now, under Ryota's pressure, Daiki had to rely on Momoi's scouting reports. Meanwhile, Kasamatsu received the ball with Shoichi on defense. Kasamatsu faked a pass but then dribbled past Shoichi. In a critical moment, Kasamatsu had to shoot a fadeaway as Shoichi jumped to defend. Kasamatsu increased his shooting height, and although Shoichi was shocked, he still managed to touch the ball, disturbing the shot. However, Kaijo's Mitsuhiro fiercely grabbed the rebound and passed it to Yoshitaka, who scored a crucial three-pointer. At the end of the first quarter, the score was 13-18, with Kaijo temporarily leading. Back in the locker room, Momoi revisited Ryota's scouting information. On the sidelines, Kagami and others felt Ryota had gotten stronger. But Kuroko didn't believe Daiki would lose, knowing Daiki tends to escalate his effort as the game progresses. Now that Ryota had provoked him, Kaijo might not maintain their advantage. The second quarter started surprisingly calm. Shoichi had the ball but was tightly defended by Yoshitaka, leading him to pass to Kusuke, who scored. It seemed Gakuen was beginning to counterattack. Kasamatsu then got the ball, quickly defended by Shoichi, but he passed to Ryota. Daiki appeared almost instantly in front of Ryota, who tried to use feints but was read by Daiki, who stole the ball. These two knew each other too well. Next, Daiki alternated hands dribbling, and although Ryota anticipated his direction, Daiki used Ryota's shifting weight against him to change direction and broke through his defense. Before Ryota could react, Daiki took a shot. Mitsuhiro jumped to defend but collided with Daiki. Despite the contact, Daiki scored, and Mitsuhiro was called for a foul. Daiki's additional free throw went in without issue, tying the score. The game continued, and the ball was passed back to Ryota, with Kaijo seeming to focus their plays on him. But Daiki was a tough opponent. Shoichi warned Ryota that mere imitation wouldn't be enough to beat Daiki. This time, Ryota tried to mimic Kasamatsu's moves, but Daiki instantly saw through it and easily blocked the shot. With 28 seconds left in the second quarter, Kaijo called a timeout, and the coach advised them not to rush their offense. This led to Kaijo being led by the nose. They needed to control the pace themselves and stabilize their interior defense. Although Kaijo was currently at a disadvantage, Ryota seemed to have a plan in reserve. It was uncertain if he could handle Daiki. Ryota continued to guard Daiki in yet another encounter today. Holding the ball, Ryota surprised Daiki by passing to Kasamatsu instead of making an expected move. Daiki was confused, wondering if Ryota was giving up, which was out of character for him. Sakurai intercepted it. Daiki realized Kaijo was taking a risky strategic shift in their play. Facing Ryota again, Ryota's eyes were filled with a fighting spirit, showing he still did not want to lose. But Daiki was indifferent. Daiki quickly maneuvered past Ryota. Kasamatsu intentionally collided with him, causing Daiki to commit a foul, nullifying the shot. This move by Kasamatsu was risky given Daiki's solid build. A wrong move could cause injury. Daiki knew Kasamatsu did it on purpose and responded with a dunk and a reverse shot, acknowledging that Kasamatsu's actions were to buy Ryota time. However, he wasn't going to give Ryota any chance to retaliate. Watching Daiki, Ryota was still drawn to him, having originally started playing basketball out of admiration for Daiki. But this admiration also made him not want to see Daiki lose, yet as a representative of Kaijo, he could not afford a loss. This contradiction troubled Ryota, but he knew that playing earnestly was the greatest respect he could offer to a competitor. At this moment, Ryota was fully determined, with a resolute look that even Kuroko noticed from the sidelines. Ryota had always restrained from emulating Daiki's playing style due to reverence, as copying a superior player is not easy. Although still not at Daiki's level, Ryota was confident he could do it. Shoichi then took the ball, closely guarded by Kasamatsu. Glancing at the scoreboard as the second quarter was about to end, confident in his ability to score, the ball smoothly went through the net. The score was now 34-43, with Gakuen leading by 9 points as they entered. Back in the locker room, Kaijo was silent, who planned to observe and possibly mimic Daiki's style, including his techniques and gameplay. Depending on how quickly he could pick it up, he might be ready by the second half of the third quarter or might need to wait until the fourth quarter. In a bid for victory, Kasamatsu was prepared to fight hard to give Ryota more time. On the Gakuen side, Momoi had anticipated Ryota's plan to mimic Daiki. Kosuke became anxious, fearing that if Ryota successfully copied Daiki, it might dominate him. He suggested to the coach that Daiki should sit out the next part of the game. Daiki, however, dismissed the concern, confident that the outcome wouldn't change. The only person who could defeat Daiki was himself. To ease the pressure, Ryota stepped outside for a breath of fresh air and unexpectedly ran into Kuroko, who was out walking his dog. Ryota was stunned to see Kuroko with his dog, number 2. The dog looked just like Kuroko. Ryota thought Kuroko had come specifically to cheer him on, but when Kuroko denied this, Ryota felt a bit sad. However, this didn't matter much to him at the moment. He wanted to know who Kuroko favored between him and Daiki, but Kuroko said he didn't know since both were strong players. Hearing this, Ryota felt somewhat relieved knowing his abilities were recognized by Kuroko. With this in mind, he decided to focus solely on the game. As the third quarter began, Sakurai got the ball with Yoshitaka defending him. Sakurai felt a strong pressure and got distracted for a moment, which Kasamatsu used to intercept the ball and pass it to Ryota. Ryota started the quarter with a fast break. Ryota, while switching hands with the ball, faked his moves. Not yet fluent, but enough to shock Shoichi. Shoichi continued to defend, fouling Ryota due to his intense defense. For the first time, Shoichi felt Ryota's presence so intensely it gave him goosebumps, a sensation he had only experienced with Daiki. The game was getting more interesting. From the sidelines, Momoi was also surprised by Ryota's quick imitation. She knew Ryota had been observing, but didn't expect him to master the move so quickly. Ryota continued to grow. He bypassed Kusuke's defense and made a hook shot, the same move Daiki used against Kagami. In his haste and frustration, Kusuke collided with Ryota, who was then fouled and awarded 2 free throws, both of which he made, reigniting hope for Kaijo. The score was now 46-58. Riko noticed that Ryota avoided direct confrontations with Daiki throughout the third quarter, probably because his skills were not yet fully polished. If the two met again, it would mean Ryota had successfully mimicked Daiki. Daiki, not making moves, seemed to be playing a developmental game with Ryota, but that was not the case. He quickly made a casual shot that scored too easily, shocking everyone with its simplicity. Ryota was stunned, and Daiki declared his patience exhausted. If Ryota did not face him directly soon, he would intensify his game. Gakuin's defense was tight. Kasamatsu couldn't break through Shoichi's defense and had to make a quick shot. Luckily, Mitsuhiro, with his strong rebounding ability, grabbed the ball and passed it back to Kasamatsu, who scored effortlessly. The next second, the ball was in Sakurai's hands, known for his three-point shooting. To stop him, Yoshitaka made a full effort to intercept the ball, catching Sakurai off guard. The ball returned to Kasamatsu, ending the play safely. He just needed to focus on doing his job and mimicking Daiki well. With the support and understanding of his teammates, Ryota finally grasped what Kuroko meant by being a team. Now ready to confront Daiki directly, Ryota considered Daiki's claim that only he could defeat himself. What would happen if he faced another version of Daiki? Ryota broke past the defense, and under Daiki's shocked gaze, jumped for a shot at the basket. Daiki followed in fury, losing his composure, and fell into Ryota's trap, colliding with him. Ryota made a reverse shot, and the ball went in. Daiki was fouled, giving Ryota an additional free throw. At this point, Daiki had 4 fouls with 1 quarter left, so he needed to be cautious in the upcoming game. Daiki realized he had been tricked. Ryota's familiar, untroubled expression reminded him of Kuroko's, which momentarily distracted him, causing him to miss a pass from a teammate. A rare mistake for Daiki. Ryota seized the opportunity, grabbing the ball and heading for a spectacular dunk. Daiki quickly recovered and rushed to block Ryota's attempt, determined not to give up despite his 4 fouls. Daiki doesn't know the meaning of holding back. The third quarter ended, and back in the locker room, Gakuin's coach was worried about the next part of the game and decided to focus on both offense and defense. Despite his 4 fouls, Daiki insisted on playing, determined to end Ryota's run. However, Kusuke thought Daiki was being too reckless, while Shoichi felt it was worth the risk. They decided to put their fate in Daiki's hands, believing in their ace despite the risk. On Kaijo's side, although Ryota was in a favorable position, they couldn't afford to be complacent. The team's unconditional trust gave Ryota significant courage. All he needed to do was fight back with all he had. As the fourth quarter started, both teams played at a high tempo. Daiki, now fully focused, scored the first basket with a fadeaway shot, impressing the Kaijo coach with his ability to concentrate under pressure. Ryota wasn't idle. He quickly replicated Daiki's moves, using the same posture to score, subtly increasing the pressure on Daiki. Ryota's ability to learn quickly intensified the game. Whatever move Daiki made, Ryota perfectly copied it and responded swiftly. The players were neck and neck, almost clashing on the court, with the scoreboard very tight. With 3 minutes left, Kaijo was still 8 points behind. If they couldn't find a breakthrough, their efforts would be wasted. As the players grew exhausted from the fast-paced game, an opportunity arose when Sakurai failed to catch a pass, which Ryota intercepted. Daiki rushed back to defend, and both players tried to outsmart each other. Ryota made a series of feints and went for a no-look shot, which Daiki anticipated and blocked, preventing the pass to Kasamatsu. With 1 minute left, Ryota missed a crucial opportunity, as Daiki, who always plays focused solely on the basket, saw through Ryota's intentions. Ryota realized he couldn't match Daiki's ability to dominate alone. In the final minute, Gakuen overwhelmed Kaijo, but Ryota refused to give up. As Daiki went for a dunk, Ryota defended with all his might and said, "If there is a reason for defeat, it's only because I'm not strong enough." The players struggled in midair, but ultimately Daiki scored. The final score was 98 to 110. Exhausted, Ryota collapsed on the court as the final buzzer sounded, unable to get up on his own. Kasamatsu helped him up. Although disappointed, Ryota and Kasamatsu vowed to redeem themselves at the Winter Cup. The game was thrilling and ignited everyone's fighting spirit. Riko decided to intensify the team's training to make a strong showing at the Winter Cup. Not only Kuroko's group, but also Shintaro watched the game, showing that the generation of miracles still paid close attention to each other, as they would soon be opponents. Knowing your enemy is crucial in battle. 2 members of the generation of miracles had yet to play officially: Murasaki Bara, who shares Kagami's voracious appetite, and Akashi, the former leader. Regardless of their strength, Kagami and Kuroko were unafraid, ready for the new generation that was now upon them. The summer national competition has just concluded, and the upcoming Winter Cup is another major event in the basketball community. All the strong basketball schools are actively preparing for it. Before a rest day, Riko organized a team-building activity that everyone enjoyed, except for Kagami, who was busy working on his left-hand dexterity, trying to improve his ball-handling skills. However, it seemed like a long way to go. Tomorrow there will be a street basketball tournament near the school. Furihata wanted to rally everyone to participate, but Riko rejected the idea, insisting that a rest day should be used for rest. Teppei suggested that only the sophomores take the full rest while the freshmen could join the tournament. Hearing about the tournament, Kagami became excited and started conserving energy for the next day's competition. Early the next morning, Kagami and his teammates arrived at the tournament venue and met Teppei there. Kagami was drawn to the vibrant street basketball atmosphere, having not participated in such a large-scale event since returning to Japan. He then registered at the sign-up booth, where they encountered the Seiho team players. Tagawa reacted with his usual exaggeration. After registering, the 2 teams sat on the grass and chatted. They were shocked to hear that the senior players from Seiho's team planned to retire. Only the top 8 teams from the national competition qualify for the Winter Cup, and Seiho had just missed out, stopping at the quarterfinals. As the conversation ended, it was time for Seiho's match against Yosen High from Akita. With Seiho's capabilities, the match should have been evenly matched, but they were thoroughly outplayed by Yosen. During the game, Kagami spotted a familiar figure, Tetsuya, his childhood friend from America. Tetsuya also noticed Kagami, and they greeted each other. Kagami introduced Tetsuya to everyone and reminisced about their past. Kagami had moved to the US in elementary school, struggling with the language barrier and making no friends until he met Tetsuya, also from Japan. They became close, and Tetsuya, who excelled at basketball, introduced Kagami to the sport. Over time, their friendship deepened, and Kagami's skills rapidly improved. They became like brothers, and the rings on necklaces they wore symbolized their friendship. After middle school, they stopped playing basketball together. One day, they met again on the court as opponents, neither yielding, each winning 49 times against the other. Tetsuya and Kagami made a pact that if Kagami won the next game, they would no longer refer to each other as brothers. Reluctantly, Kagami agreed. During the next game, Kagami was strong, but noticed that Tetsuya had injured his arm. Kagami deliberately held back, which Tetsuya saw as a huge insult. He tore off his necklace and challenged Kagami for one last time, staking their brotherhood on it. However, Kagami soon returned to Japan and the game was left unresolved. Now that they have reunited, they need to settle their old promise. but Kagami hesitates to risk their brotherly bond over a game. At that moment, Kuroko uses number 2 to block Kagami's mouth, indicating that basketball and competition should be viewed separately. The two should not be conflated. Tetsuya was intrigued by Kuroko, who introduced himself calmly. To Kagami's surprise, Tetsuya was already aware of Kuroko and complimented him as a valuable teammate, though he mentioned having an even more interesting player on his own team. Kagami later learned that Tetsuya had joined Yosen High, where Murasakibara studied. As the game was about to start, a hand appeared above the ball, stunning everyone with the sheer size of Murasakibara, who was late because he stopped to eat. Kuroko greeted Murasakibara, who responded with a sinister look, superficially acknowledging Kuroko, but secretly wanting to crush him. Murasakibara's presence was overwhelming, yet it seemed he was there not to compete, but to stop the game, as Yosen players were not allowed to participate in unofficial matches. Attempting to leave with Tetsuya, Murasakibara was challenged by Kagami, who wouldn't miss this opportunity to face a member of the Generation of Miracles. Despite Kagami's efforts, Murasakibara ignored him and even plucked 2 of Kagami's eyebrows. As Murasakibara was about to leave, Kagami provoked him into staying, which surprisingly worked. Murasakibara accepted the challenge and returned to the court, shedding his clueless demeanor. Kuroko explained that some players might seem offbeat, but they turn serious when it counts, and Murasakibara was such a player. The game began, and Seirin seized the ball. Kagami guarded Tetsuya, and Teppei was on Murasakibara. Kuroko's quick pass led to Teppei dunking. Murasakibara then remembered past encounters with Teppei in middle school, where Teppei's spirited defense had irritated him, prompting a desire to crush Teppei's spirit. Tetsuya advised Murasakibara to focus on defense only, as he felt disinterested in playing seriously. Kagami guarded Tetsuya, who made a jump shot, seamlessly moving from dribbling to shooting in a textbook play. Teppei, impressed, quickly organized a defense. Fukuda passed to Kuroko, who backhanded the ball to Kagami. Kagami faced a seemingly disinterested Murasakibara, which frustrated him. Just as Murasakibara started to defend, a heavy rain began, pausing the game. Back in the school gym, what was supposed to be a free practice session turned into an intense training session under Riko. Then the gym doors opened, and a drenched Momoi appeared, looking for Kuroko. Riko provided Momoi with dry clothes as the rain intensified, likely canceling the game. Though Kagami was not satisfied, Tetsuya promised to give him a gift. As Tetsuya made a jump shot for Kagami to defend, the ball unexpectedly flew past Kagami, leaving him puzzled and likely upset for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, Murasakibara was saying goodbye to Kuroko, but his condescending attitude annoyed Kuroko. After the teams parted ways, Kagami received a message from Riko instructing them to return to school, so they began their journey back. On the way, Kuroko shared that Murasakibara never played basketball out of enjoyment, but for the thrill of winning. Is this the mindset of the strong? Upon entering the gym, Momoi rushed to hug Kuroko, stunning the other team members with her figure. Riko immediately sent them out to run laps. Momoi had come because she felt rejected by Daiki, who disliked her for asking the coach to limit his playing time, which prevented him from participating in the finals. Momoi had made the request to protect Daiki from worsening an injury, but he ungratefully called her names, hurting her feelings deeply. Now, Riko understood why Daiki had not appeared in the finals. Momoi's emotions stabilized, and Riko questioned why Akashi and Murasakibara also missed the finals. Momoi speculated that Murasakibara didn't want to play against Akashi, thinking he would show up, so he skipped the game. Akashi might have felt the competition was too weak to bother. After the rain stopped, Kuroko walked Momoi home and showed her his new basketball technique. He dribbled past her so swiftly that she couldn't even see the ball's path. Kuroko had evolved. Not only could he pass, but his dribbling had also become unpredictable. However, Momoi, being a keen analyst, might remember and counter this in the future. Soon, the Winter Cup preliminaries were upon them, with 8 schools participating. Seirin's opponent was the 6th-ranked national team, Yosen High. Their center, Narumi, who was somewhat lecherous but not to be underestimated, was excited to show off when he heard Seirin's coach was a woman. Once the teams lined up at the court, Narumi deflated upon seeing Riko's slim figure and rudely commented on it in front of her, setting her off on a rampage. The players resolved to get revenge on the court for Riko. The game started with Yusei's tight defense. Hyuga passed to Kagami, who then passed to Izuki. Surrounded by defenders, who again passed to Kagami. Now double-teamed, Kagami was pressured and eventually lost the ball out of bounds, getting increasingly frustrated. Hyuga also began to worry, as it was clear Yusei was using a double-teaming strategy from the start, putting them at a disadvantage. However, Teppei seemed unfazed and patiently reassured Kagami. He told Hyuga to pass him the ball next, indicating he had a plan. In terms of playstyle, Yusei was the perfect nemesis for Seirin, exploiting their weak interior defense with their strong inside game. Yet they underestimated Teppei, who easily broke through their defense. Because Teppei can both handle and pass the ball, as well as charge as a center, he passed to Hyuga, who easily scored a layup. When facing defense, he used a hook shot to deceive and pass to Hyuga, who then made a spot-up shot and scored quickly. Teppei's ability to catch opponents off guard is largely due to his large hands, which allow him to anticipate and break down their movements. With Teppei's deceptive actions, opponents struggled to predict Seirin's next moves, like when Izuki actually went for a hook shot while Narumi expected a pass. In just a few seconds, Izuki scored, leaving Narumi stunned. Then, Narumi tried to dunk but was blocked by Teppei, who not only has skill, but also strength. The ball was quickly passed to Kuroko, who backhanded it to Kagami. Kagami attempted a spectacular dunk to shock Yusei, but jumped too high and hit the basket, impressing Yusei with his height. The first quarter ended with a score of 29-18 in favor of Seirin, who had turned the game around. By the end of the fourth quarter, the score gap had widened to 20 points, with Teppei being the highlight of the game. Holding the ball, everyone expected Teppei to pass to Hyuga, but he shot directly instead, confusing Yusei. With Teppei's support, the interior line was no longer Seirin's weakness, but a threat to Yusei. Whenever Teppei got a rebound, he passed to Hyuga, whose three-point shots were incredibly accurate, causing psychological pressure on Yusei's players. Kagami was frustrated about not being able to shoot, but Kuroko, like a little angel, calmed him down. Yusei still used a double-teaming strategy, but it was merely formal. When the ball finally got to Kagami, despite Narumi's efforts to stop him, Kagami was unstoppable and finished the game with a super dunk. At that moment, every member of the Generation of Miracles felt Kagami's presence, opening the door to his rivalry with them. From that moment, Kagami was considered on equal footing with the Generation of Miracles. As Shintaro made the last spot-up three-pointer, Shutoku finally advanced to the final rounds, and Seirin's next opponent was Izumi Academy, who had defeated them twice before. So this time, Seirin played with extra focus. That evening, Kuroko called Kagami to the court to show him the dribbling skills he had been practicing. As Kagami defended, Kuroko moved swiftly and breezed past him with a whoosh. Kuroko has greatly improved, clearly putting a lot of effort into his skills. The match between Seirin and Izumi Academy has reached a fever pitch, with Izumi Academy struggling to cope due to Hyuga's three-pointers, Izuki's defense, and Teppei's dominance in rebounds. In the end, the ball was passed to Kuroko, who backhanded it to Kagami for a super dunk to finish the game. The score was 78-61 in favor of Seirin. After the game, Izumi Academy's players couldn't help but remark that Seirin had changed significantly from their national competition days, improving more than just a little. Meanwhile, the game between Shutoku and Risaki Fist High School was concluding. Takao passed to Shintaro, who ended the game with a beautiful three-pointer. However, the main players of Risaki Fist High School did not participate, making Shintaro feel underestimated. Now both Shutoku and Seirin had advanced to the finals, facing a head-to-head confrontation. Winning meant moving closer to success, and losing would end their chances. Clearly, a tough battle lay ahead. On their way back from the locker room to the court, Teppei encountered Hanamiya Makoto from Risaki, not on good terms due to Hanamiya's dirty play, which had previously injured Teppei. Despite his foul play, Hanamiya's reaching the finals showed his cunning. At the court, both Shutoku and Seirin players were preparing. Kuroko and Kagami noticed a dramatic change in Shintaro's aura, who seemed like a hungry beast, intensely excited for victory. Even Takao was startled by his side. However, Seirin was not intimidated, their desire for victory just as strong as Shutoku's. The game started with Seirin initially getting the ball, but Takao intercepted it midway and passed it to Kimura. Fortunately, Kuroko quickly intercepted it and intended to pass to Kagami, but the ball ended up with Shintaro. As Shintaro jumped to shoot, Kagami quickly blocked him, reminding him, "As long as I'm here, you won't shoot easily." However, Shintaro simply retreated without responding. Soon after, Shintaro jumped to shoot again, but Kagami blocked him once more. Kagami thought Shintaro might try a new tactic, but it seemed similar to before. However, Riko noticed Shintaro was shooting more frequently, suggesting an improvement in his stamina. Both players were exhausting each other, and Kagami's competitive spirit was ignited. The second quarter started with the score at 23-16 in favor of Seirin, thanks to Kagami's consecutive dunks preventing Shintaro's three-pointers. The physical toll was starting to wear Kagami down, though Seirin was still ahead. However, the prolonged exertion could diminish their advantage. The ball then went to Izuki, who surveyed the court with his eagle eye. Takao was behind Kuroko, and Kuroko's deceptive passes started to fail. Kagami, low on stamina, passed the ball to Hyuga, but Shintaro intercepted it and jumped to shoot. Kagami leaped to block, but Shintaro suddenly landed and made a spot-up shot. Kagami, still ascending, was startled by Takao at this height. Although Kagami's fingertips touched the ball, Shintaro's shot failed. Kuroko then caught the rebound and made a long pass to Izuki, who went straight for a layup. 2 points scored. Now, Shintaro has started using feints, making Kagami's defense much more challenging. With his energy fading, Kagami might not last much longer. Fortunately, Teppei steps in to help, but Shintaro unexpectedly passes the ball to Takao. Kagami and Teppei are too slow to react, and even Riko is shocked. Shintaro, usually a solo player, has started passing, a surprising change. Otsubo, waiting under the basket, receives the ball and dunks, shifting the game's momentum. Shintaro is now playing as part of the team, making Shutoku a unified force with increasing offensive strength. Despite the tough situation, the game is far from over. At this moment, Teppei decides to substitute Kuroko off since his deceptive passes are no longer effective, and he's becoming a liability on the court. Kuroko is heartbroken, yet sees it as an opportunity to refine his dribbling skills in preparation for a new technique. Seirin then tries a double-team defense on Shintaro, but their interior defense lapses, and Shutoku's Kiyoshi exploits the gap. Seirin speeds up their offense. Teppei receives the ball and goes for a layup. Kiyoshi tries to block, but Teppei passes to Izuki under the basket for a dunk, effectively countering Kiyoshi. Rinosuke then passes the ball to Hyuga, who scores a three-pointer, causing Shutoku players to perceive a change in Seirin's strategy. Otsubo remarks that this is the Seirin known for its strong offense. A shooting error by Seirin allows Otsubo to rebound and pass to Shintaro. Kagami can't defend in time, and Shintaro scores a long-range three-pointer, narrowing the score difference. The second quarter ends, and the second half becomes a battle for points. Seirin appears disadvantaged without Kuroko, but his return could change the game. The third quarter starts with Seirin holding a slim 2-point lead, relying heavily on Kuroko's dribbling skills. Shintaro passes to Takao, who heads towards the basket. Instead of shooting, Takao passes the ball between his legs directly to Shintaro, who scores a three-pointer, putting Shutoku ahead. Then Izuki advances the ball, intending to pass to Hyuga, but Kiyoshi intercepts. Shutoku counters quickly, and Kimura scores a layup. Although Kiyoshi prefers dunking, scoring points is more crucial. It's clear Shutoku has thoroughly studied Seirin's tactics, putting Seirin on the defensive. The ball is back with Shintaro, and Kagami, unable to jump, can only watch as Shintaro makes a spot-up shot. Shutoku now leads by 8 points. Riko calls a timeout and brings Kuroko back in. Aware of Kuroko's preparation, Shintaro is cautious. The game resumes at a slower pace for Seirin. Hyuga passes to Izuki, who attempts to pass to Kuroko, but Takao's tight defense blocks any clear passing lanes. Kuroko waits for the right moment to maximize the impact of his new dribbling technique. Teppei passed the ball to Kuroko, who drove straight at Shintaro. Shintaro panicked because Kuroko, holding the ball, couldn't use his deceptive passing. It seemed like a do-or-die move. Shintaro focused on the ball, but in the next second, Kuroko and the ball vanished, outpacing Shintaro's reaction. Otsubo tried to defend, but Kuroko backhanded the ball to Teppei, who dunked it, reversing the situation. Shintaro was stunned, hardly recognizing the Kuroko in front of him, which sparked his sense of crisis. The ball reached Kimura, who hurriedly shot to score, but missed slightly. Izuki grabbed the rebound and passed to Kuroko, who, unstoppable now, breezed past Takao and passed to Hyuga for a precise spot-up shot, scoring consecutively. The scoreboard now read 73-76, narrowing the gap. Kuroko intercepted Kiyoshi's pass, and Hyuga scored another three-pointer, catching up. The third quarter ended with Kuroko in good form, but Kagami was less optimistic, drained from defending Shintaro. Shintaro wasn't about to give up. Despite Seirin's impressive tactics, his long-range shooting was formidable. When the ball returned to him, he found the angle and made a spot-up three-pointer. Kagami, still under the basket, couldn't defend in time. Kuroko and the team quickly transitioned to defense, and Hyuga responded with a three-pointer, matching Shintaro. The intensity on the court reached its peak, with both teams pushing their limits and the audience thrilled. With 30 seconds left, Seirin led by 1 point, but Otsubo dunked, putting Shutoku ahead. The ball was with Izuki, but he was intercepted, and the ball nearly went out of bounds. Kuroko, using his new dribbling skills, saved it and passed to Teppei. Suddenly, Teppei's knee acted up, but he still attempted a dunk, which Shintaro blocked, committing a foul. Teppei went to the line for 2 shots. Under immense pressure and with a painful knee, he made one, tying the score. Kagami grabbed the rebound and tried a dunk, but Shintaro blocked him, and the ball was thrown out as the game ended in a tie. Due to shortened game times in the tournament, overtime was not an option, but the draw was still a respectable outcome. Teppei thought he would be blamed by his teammates, but instead received high fives all around. However, when Hyuga suggested that he should no longer continue playing due to his knee, Teppei was angered by the comment. This might be his last major tournament, so even if it ruins his knee, Teppei is determined to play. Kagami overheard this at the door and later asked Hyuga about it at home. This story goes back to a year ago when Hyuga had just started high school. After being crushed by Teiko Middle School in a match, he had given up on basketball, and at that time, Yosen High didn't have a basketball club. That changed when Teppei appeared and disrupted Hyuga's calm and boring high school life. Teppei founded the basketball club and recruited players like Izuki, Rinosuke, and Shinji. He wanted Hyuga to join, but Hyuga refused. Teppei then began his persistent persuasion, but it seemed ineffective. Additionally, they needed a manager, and Rico was the perfect candidate. However, at that time, Rico was not optimistic about the team. Despite facing many rejections, Teppei didn't give up and continued planning for the basketball club. One evening, he saw Hyuga walking alone on the street and quickly caught up to challenge him to a one-on-one game. Hyuga lost miserably and, spurred by Teppei's challenge, decided to give basketball another try, though partly out of spite. On a Monday morning, Teppei took everyone to the rooftop to declare their names, classes, and goals loudly, including the punishments if they failed to meet these goals. Hyuga's punishment was the harshest. If he failed, he would have to confess his love naked. This bold move finally convinced Rico, who agreed to join the basketball club. She set up a rigorous training schedule, pushing everyone to their limits. Eventually, the national tournament began, and Seirin's basketball team emerged from among many schools, with Teppei particularly shining as an exceptionally skilled center and point guard. However, the intense games took a toll on his knee, causing pain that he ignored. During a match against Hanamiya Makoto's Risaki Fist High School, Seirin scored quickly with Teppei as the main scorer. But as his knee worsened, Hanamiya noticed and maliciously injured Teppei during a rebound, trapping his knee with his leg. Teppei fell in pain and was later hospitalized. Although Seirin won the match, Teppei's knee required surgery and a long recovery. Returning to the court would take a year, and he would only be able to play for 1 more year. Teppei didn't want to miss any games, but Hyuga insisted he rest for a year to return in the best condition, promising that the team would wait for him. Moved by Hyuga's sincere request, Teppei agreed. After Teppei left, Seirin was defeated by the top 3 kings of the basketball world. Now, Teppei has returned, but his knee hasn't fully recovered, which is why he said this would be his last year in basketball. With Teppei's determination, along with the growth of Kagami and Kuroko, Seirin's basketball team is only getting stronger and aims to become the best in Japan. The first game against Risaki really exhausted Seirin's players. Rico decided to take everyone to a hot spring to relax. Hyuga and others stripped down and lounged in the hot spring, with Shinji excitedly swimming around. Meanwhile, Hyuga sat under a shower, asking his juniors to scrub his back. Kagami stepped up to help but almost pushed Hyuga too hard, which probably made Hyuga feel the juniors' enthusiasm. On the other side, Kuroko got the hot spring owner's permission to bring in his dog, number 2, and gave him a bath, turning them into giant cotton candies. The guys were bored at the hot spring when they heard laughter from the women's section next door, which turned out to be a group of female college students. Shinji got excited, but couldn't see over the wall, even standing on Kagami's shoulders. Hyuga joined in, and they found a hole, but were caught peeping by Riko, who scolded them severely, dampening their spirits. When they returned to the hot spring, they encountered players from Gakuen. Shoichi greeted them, and both teams awkwardly interacted. In the women's section, Riko had just entered the hot spring when Momoi followed, and Riko admitted her defeat, acknowledging Momoi's physical advantages. Kuroko, after washing number 2, went out for some air. Kagami went to buy him a drink, and Daiki placed a bottle in front of him. The two behaved like the most familiar strangers, unsure how to start a conversation. Back at the hot spring, players from Gakuen and Seirin started a sauna endurance contest. Wakamatsu from Gakuen couldn't take it and left the sauna, but the others continued. Then Shoichi brought out the Winter Cup schedule, which Momoi had managed to obtain. Sharing it seemed like a gesture of goodwill, but was actually a declaration of war. This year, the Winter Cup would not use the usual county selection process, and Seirin's first opponent would be Gakuen. Despite Gakuen's strength, Hyuga wasn't scared and warned them to be ready, promising that they would give their all. Even Riko responded directly to Momoi after hearing the news, but her reaction was a bit too provocative. Following this, Seirin's players began intense training under Riko's father, Kagetora. They endured hellish conditions, playing cops and robbers in the mountains for 3 hours, which improved their endurance and muscle mass. But the purpose wasn't just physical. Kagetora wanted each player to develop their own special moves, like Hyuga's 3-point shooting, which needed to be fast and accurate to beat Gakuen. Although their play might seem individualistic, it was actually an extreme form of teamwork. With 1 month left until the Winter Cup, Seirin's players were set to be reborn from the fiery training. Meanwhile, Kagami was absent for special training, as he went to the U.S. as an exchange student to learn basketball techniques from a master, promising a transformative return. With the Winter Cup only days away after Kagetora's training, the players' physical condition improved, and the second-year students had perfected their special moves, though the first years were slightly behind. Kuroko remained the most mysterious to Kagetora, his unique style of play becoming his special move, still needing fine-tuning. Kuroko needs to overcome a significant hurdle to improve his skills. Not only Seirin, but ace players from other schools are also intensively training, making this Winter Cup a real test of strength. Soon, the day of the Winter Cup arrived, and everyone was eager to face the strong team, Gakuen. Before the match, Kuroko received a call from Akashi, who wanted to meet. Riko, concerned, sent Furihata with him. Not just Kuroko, but Daiki, Ryota, Shintaro, and Murasakibara were also summoned. Akashi arrived late and attempted to dismiss Furihata when Kagami appeared, defiant as ever. Unexpectedly, Akashi lunged with scissors, nearly harming Kagami if he had reacted slower. Then, in a bizarre twist, Akashi began cutting his hair in front of everyone, seemingly signaling a fresh start. Regardless, they would be rivals on the court. Back at the venue, the teams lined up, with Kagami greeting Daiki, who noticed Kagami's development. The upcoming match promised to be challenging. Kuroko, facing Daiki, briefly reminisced about their past together. His resolve to win was stronger than ever. Kagetora also attended the game, meeting his old acquaintance, Shutoku's coach Masaki, who was there to see the results of the training. The match began with Kagami securing the ball and passing to Izuki, who struggled to find an opening against Gakuen's tight defense. Sakurai then intercepted the ball and surprisingly threw it, seemingly in error. Hyuga doubted the shot would make it, but Daiki was already under the basket, catching the ball for a planned dunk, showcasing their prearranged aerial relay. Though Gakuen seemed to have the upper hand, Seirin had a secret weapon, Kuroko's enhanced passing technique. Kuroko, behind Daiki, grabbed the rebound and used his speed pass, which was more powerful than Daiki anticipated, pushing his hands apart. Teppei caught the ball, and as he went for the dunk, Kagami quietly positioned himself behind. Teppei passed the ball to Kagami, who scored with a dunk, stunning everyone with their unexpected play. Ryota was shocked by Kuroko's enhanced pass, which had added a spinning motion to the ball, much like a bullet fired from a gun, giving it penetrating power. Daiki was left staring at his hands, impressed by Kuroko's skill. However, Shoichi knew Daiki had much more to show, and the game was just beginning. At this moment, Shoichi has the ball. He dodges Izuki's defense and passes to a teammate. Kuroko rushes to block, but is a step too late, and Gakuen scores again. Kagetora acknowledges Shoichi's composed performance. Under the basket, Wakamatsu and Teppei vie for the rebound. Both jump, but Teppei slightly misses, and Wakamatsu quickly passes the ball to Sakurai, who nails a beautiful three-pointer, boosting Gakuen's morale. On the sidelines, Kasamatsu points out a key issue. Seirin lacks variety in their special moves. Kuroko's passes are their only standout skill, but Gakuen isn't much affected by them and continues to play as usual. If they get serious, Seirin stands no chance. Seirin finds themselves in a passive position. To turn things around, Kagami decides to directly confront Daiki. Everyone anticipates this clash of the titans. Kagami goes into brainstorming mode, evolving his defensive and shooting techniques. But Daiki breaks through them all. Kagami's current abilities are still not enough to compete with Daiki, so he passes the ball to Izuki. Daiki is surprised by Kagami's performance, but recognizes that Kagami has grown smarter about the game and looks forward to their next encounter. Seirin then calls for a timeout, causing a stir among the spectators, who think Kagami is backing out. Hyuga decides to break from the outside since Gakuen's interior defense is too tight, and Riko agrees with his strategy. The game resumes, and Izuki passes to Hyuga. Sakurai quickly moves to defend him, but Hyuga pulls back and makes a successful three-point jump shot, stunning Sakurai, who had never seen Hyuga use this move before, and it was executed too quickly. Hyuga tells him not to assume that only the first years have improved. The second years are strong too. Hyuga's performance remains solid, hitting every shot, leaving Sakurai unable to defend and feeling overwhelmed. Later, when the ball is in Sakurai's hands again, Hyuga defends him. Sakurai raises his hand for a quick shot and forcefully makes the basket. Shoichi explains that Sakurai's shooting adapts to the opponent's strength. Now that Hyuga is stronger, Sakurai steps up his game. After making the shot, Sakurai taunts Hyuga, who becomes infuriated and insists that Izuki pass him all the balls. Izuki feels Hyuga is exaggerating, but complies due to Hyuga's anger. The game turns into a shootout between Hyuga and Sakurai, each scoring one after the other, making the match somewhat dull. With 5 seconds left in the first quarter and Gakuen leading by 3 points, Teppei makes a long pass. Kuroko dashes towards Gakuen's basket to catch the ball, stunning everyone with his intent to score himself. As Kuroko catches the ball, Shozo blocks him. Seeing Kagami approaching from behind, Kuroko dodges the defense. Wakamatsu suddenly moves to intercept, but Kuroko backpasses to Hyuga, who is in excellent form, and scores a precise three-pointer, tying the game just as the first quarter ends. During the break, Kagami suggested that Kuroko should sit out to conserve energy. However, Kuroko wanted to use his vanishing dribble again to widen the score gap. The other team members were concerned that using his signature move too frequently would make it predictable. Riko then spoke up, agreeing to let Kuroko play, arguing that basketball tactics could be deciphered eventually, and that the advantage in a game is fleeting. Unbeknownst to them, Shutoku's Takao had already figured out Kuroko's style, having been bypassed by it many times. Kuroko's vanishing dribble was essentially an upgraded version of misdirection, reliant on Kagami's involvement. Without Kagami, Kuroko couldn't execute it effectively. Momoi also analyzed this and concluded that if Daiki closely guarded Kagami, Kuroko would have no opportunity. However, Daiki chose not to heed Momoi's advice, preferring to rely on his own strength, believing that only he could defeat himself. As the second quarter began, Kuroko faced off directly against Daiki. Kuroko didn't expect Daiki to be his direct opponent, but proceeded with the vanishing dribble as soon as Kagami was in position. Daiki appeared not to resist at first, but it was a feint. He quickly stepped back and blocked Kuroko again, this time with his eyes closed, possibly sensing Kuroko's movements and breathing. Daiki's reaction speed was unexpectedly fast, a result of their previous play where he found reacting without sight faster. Daiki then stole the ball from Kuroko. Although Kagami arrived quickly, he couldn't stop Daiki, who effortlessly dribbled to Seirin's basket and dunked, stunning everyone. Daiki's dominance was clear. He was like a monster on the court. Riko wanted to call a timeout to substitute Kuroko, but it was too late. Kuroko attempted another move against Daiki, who easily intercepted the ball and scored with a casual shot, further widening the gap. Izuki urged everyone to calm down and focus on scoring one basket at a time. However, a pass intended for Hyuga was intercepted by Wakamatsu, who quickly scored, increasing Gakuin's lead. This dealt a significant blow to Seirin, with the score now at 30-24. Riko wished she could stop time, but that wasn't possible. Hyuga's defense against Sakurai led to the ball going out of bounds, prompting Seirin to request a timeout. Riko decided to bench Kuroko. Reflecting on Daiki's words, Kuroko felt despondent. He thought about being a shadow, existing because of the light and the futility of trying to become the light himself. This realization deeply affected him. Seeing Kuroko's distress, Kagami placed a reassuring hand on his head, telling him that no effort is ever wasted and that hard work always yields results. He promised that when Kuroko returned to the game, they would dominate the court together. But the question remained, could they really handle Daiki, the monster? He knew that Kuroko was crucial to the Seirin basketball team, and losing him would be a loss for the entire team. Kuroko had saved them many times before. Now it was Kagami's turn to save Kuroko. Only he could handle Daiki. As the game continued, Izuki passed the ball to Kagami, who was immediately confronted by Daiki. The two faced off, with Wakamatsu eagerly waiting behind Kagami. Now surrounded, Kagami would have previously shot recklessly, but this time he passed the ball to Teppei, who was unguarded. Teppei quickly scored a layup for 2 points. Faced with Kagami's calm, Daiki was dismissive, but unaware that Kagami had grown. He was no longer the rash player he used to be. This time, Daiki dribbled up, prepared with a move no one could defend. His eyes shifted, and he swiftly maneuvered past the defense. Kagami reached out but couldn't touch the ball. Just as Daiki was about to shoot, Kagami leapt up, using his overwhelming height to block Daiki's shot, stunning everyone since no one had ever countered this move before. Riko finally understood Kagami's true ability. Previously, Kagami had relied too much on Kuroko, subconsciously suppressing his own skills. In fact, his ability surpassed that of the Miracle Generation. Now, with Kuroko's limitations, Kagami was fighting alone, unleashing his suppressed ability, leading to a situation where Daiki was now being dominated by Kagami. This was a blessing in disguise. Daiki's fighting spirit was ignited by Kagami, finally facing a worthy opponent. A smirk began to form on his lips, signaling the start of an intense battle. When the ball returned to Daiki, Kagami defended. It seemed Daiki's previous dribble was fast, but now he accelerated even more, breaking through the defense. Kagami followed closely, and Daiki shot directly at the hoop. Everyone knew the shot wouldn't make it. It was meant for an alley-oop with Wakamatsu. However, as Wakamatsu prepared to dunk, Daiki suddenly snatched the ball back and made a behind-the-back shot, scoring smoothly. This flashy move frustrated Wakamatsu, who was angered by Daiki's chaotic play. When he protested, Daiki simply told him not to get in the way. Wakamatsu exploded in anger, and Sakurai hurried to smooth things over. Meanwhile, the ball was back in Kagami's hands, with Daiki defending and Shinji seemingly just a bystander. Now in Daiki and Kagami's eyes, there was only each other. After a series of feints, Kagami jumped and shot, evening the score. The unleashed Kagami was now on equal footing with Daiki. If the game continued, Daiki might no longer be a match for Kagami. Now full of energy, Kagami was determined to beat Daiki. Their duel became intense, with both players at full strength. However, the balance was soon disrupted when Daiki attempted an irregular shot to create a lead. Surprisingly, Kagami easily stole the ball, shocking everyone. Had Kagami surpassed Daiki in ability? His growth rate was indeed terrifying. With Kagami present, Daiki was no longer an undefendable force. Kagami seemed like another Daiki, predicting all his moves and overpowering him. At that moment, Wakamoto went to grab a rebound, but Kagami, who not only jumped higher, but also became much faster, got there first. With a 2-point difference on the scoreboard, Izuki passed the ball to Kagami, hoping he could even the score. Suddenly, Daiki appeared in front of Kagami. In his eagerness, Kagami took an irregular shot. Daiki, not willing to let it go, tried his best to block it. Although he didn't stop the shot, his fingers barely touched the ball, and the shot missed. Despite not succeeding, Kagami's abilities were evident to all. Daiki, looking at his scraped finger, recognized Kagami as a formidable opponent. The second quarter ended, and there was a 10-minute halftime break. Daiki didn't return to the locker room with the others, but went out alone for some air, thrilled to finally meet an opponent who challenged him to his limits. Outside, Kuroko also took a break. Kagami joined him, putting an extra layer on Kuroko in a show of brotherly affection. Kuroko was reassured by Kagami's performance and felt confident about winning. He shared his goal with Kagami, to bring back the smiling, basketball-playing Daiki. However, Kagami wasn't concerned with these reasons. He was focused solely on giving his all for the victory. Kuroko recognized that Kagami had truly grown. The third quarter was about to start, and Kuroko readied himself to play, determined to support Kagami and win the game. The game resumed with Imayoshi handling the ball, defended tightly by Izuki. Imayoshi passed to Daiki, who was guarded by Kagami. Daiki quickly ducked past the defense, even faster than before, stunning Hyuga and the others who thought he was already at his maximum speed. Because of Daiki's incredible speed, Teppei couldn't keep up. Just as Daiki was about to make a layup, Kuroko suddenly emerged and Daiki collided with him, resulting in a foul on Daiki. Daiki could predict Kuroko's moves, but Kuroko also knew Daiki's passing routes well since they were former teammates. This move by Kuroko relieved Seirin in a critical moment, and the game continued. After receiving the ball, Kuroko quickly passed it to Hyuga, who then scored a beautiful three-pointer. This shifted the momentum on the court. However, Imayoshi was not so easily swayed and passed the ball to Wakamoto, who quickly scored, keeping the score tight. At that moment, Kuroko was closely marked by Imayoshi, making a breakthrough difficult. Riko and the others on the sidelines were anxious for Kuroko as the score was 49-50. Imayoshi, defending Kuroko tightly, seemed at ease, having mastered the trick to anticipating Kuroko's deceptive passes. He knew Kuroko's eyes always moved toward his intended pass recipient, effectively mirroring his next move. By watching this mirror, Imayoshi prevented Kuroko from using his deceptive gaze. Kuroko finally saw an opportunity to pass to Izuki, but Imayoshi intercepted it. Imayoshi then scored a three-pointer, increasing the lead to 49-53. The atmosphere for Seirin became even more tense. Izuki passed to Hyuga, who was quickly defended by Sakurai. Hyuga attempted a step-back shot, but Sakurai was prepared, stunning Hyuga, who realized Sakurai might have anticipated his moves from Momoi's thorough data analysis. Seeing no chance to shoot, Hyuga had to pass to Teppei, who also found no opening. The ball was then passed to Kagami, with Daiki immediately confronting him. With no support from Kuroko or the seniors who were all tightly marked, Kagami had to rely on himself. However, Daiki stole the ball from Kagami and dashed toward Seirin's basket. Hyuga tried to defend, but Daiki's speed was overwhelming, making Hyuga seem ineffective. Kagami quickly recovered and jumped to block as Daiki took off, but Daiki spun in mid-air, bypassing Kagami and slamming the ball with a fierce dunk, widening the gap further. Daiki's counterattack seemed to invigorate Gakuen, boosting their morale and allowing them to score consecutively. Seirin struggled to stop them. With less than 3 minutes left in the third quarter, the score was 56-70. It seemed Seirin's defeat was inevitable, as Kuroko's deceptive gaze had completely failed, and Seirin appeared out of options. Seeing this, Imayoshi got carried away, suggesting Kuroko's team give up and try again next year. However, Kuroko remembered a conversation between Teppei and Hyuga. Teppei's knee was deteriorating rapidly, and the Winter Cup might be his last major tournament. Determined to win for Teppei, Kuroko's resolve hardened, boosting Seirin's morale. Standing opposite Imayoshi, Izuki suddenly disappeared, startling Imayoshi. It turned out that after special training, the whole team had mastered techniques of deceptive gaze. Izuki, having seemingly vanished, jumped and scored, pulling back a game for Seirin. This is Kuroko's ultimate move, a grand deception, where every player becomes Kuroko, catching the opponents off guard. After Wakamatsu rebounds and passes to Imayoshi, Hyuga suddenly intercepts the ball during Imayoshi's lapse. He quickly heads towards Gakuen's basket, pursued by Sakurai, while Kuroko covers him from behind. Now, Kuroko has abandoned individual deception for a team-wide tactic, taking on Kagami's role to support everyone. This is physically demanding for Kuroko, and a gamble due to its high risk. Even if they win against Gakuen using this strategy, they can't use it again as Momoi will likely devise countermeasures for future games, given both schools are in Tokyo and will compete again. Showing their hand too early could be fatal for Seirin if they don't win this match. Meanwhile, Kagami faces Daiki again, not slowing down but breaking defense with a vanishing dribble followed by a dunk, which Daiki fails to react to. The score gap is now in single digits. However, Imayoshi quickly makes a buzzer-beating three-pointer, widening the gap again, showing that Gakuen is not easily overthrown. The third quarter ends, and during the break, Teppei resolves to win the game even if it breaks his legs. Hyuga, knowing Teppei's stubbornness, tells him to trust the team. The fourth quarter starts with Izuki passing to Hyuga, who is anticipated by Sakurai to take a step-back shot. With Kuroko's assistance, Hyuga's speed increases significantly, and Sakurai can't react in time. Hyuga quickly shoots a three-pointer, bringing the score back to single digits. The ball returns to Daiki, with Kagami rushing to defend. This time, Daiki seems changed, reminiscent of the basketball-loving boy he once was. Kagami fails to block Daiki's powerful dunk, becoming flustered and unable to stop Daiki or widen the gap. Hyuga comes to steady Kagami's nerves and decides to break through with three-pointers from the outside. He successively sinks three-pointers, while Sakurai is helpless as Hyuga exudes confidence, never worrying about missing. This disrupts Sakurai's rhythm, causing him to scramble. However, this gives Seirin more opportunities. Daiki quickly takes control, asking Sakurai to pass him the ball. Kagami rushes over, but Daiki is unstoppable, breezing past defenses. Teppei tries to block, but is tricked by a feint from Daiki, colliding with him due to his delayed reaction. Daiki shoots and scores, and Teppei is called for a foul. Daiki's basket counts, and he gets an additional free throw, which he makes effortlessly, increasing the score gap once more. After that play, both teams resumed their battle for points, but the balance remained unbroken. Then Kuroko made a suggestion. He proposed that Kagami and Teppei help him triple-team Daiki. Naturally, Daiki wasn't easily suppressed by the defense of three players, but Kagami let him slip by intentionally, followed by Teppei attempting a block from a blind spot. However, Daiki unexpectedly changed direction and shot from the side. It seemed like the shot would be successful, but it missed due to Kuroko's deceptive gaze from under the basket, distracting Daiki and shifting his focus from the hoop to himself. A tactic Daiki hadn't anticipated, leaving Imayoshi stunned by this unconventional use of deceptive play. Following this, Izuki scored with a jump shot, and Seirin gradually began to recover the score while also tightening their defense against Gakuen. Wakamatsu attempted to pass to a teammate, but Kuroko intercepted it midway. The ball was then passed to Hyuga, who was preparing to shoot when Sakurai suddenly tackled him, leading to Hyuga shooting 3 free throws. As a skilled three-point shooter, Hyuga naturally made all his shots, narrowing the score gap to just 3 points. Meanwhile, Daiki moved to the perimeter, seemingly preparing for a significant play. Imayoshi, though slightly dazed by Daiki's intensity, passed him the ball without hesitation. Kagami stepped up to defend, but Daiki appeared to enter a zone where he was untouchable, breezing past Kagami. In this zone state, Daiki was emotionless and wholly focused, making him an unstoppable force on the court, his movements too swift to follow except for his final dunk. With 5 minutes left in the game and the score at 83-90, Seirin's players did not slacken despite the time pressure. Under this intense pressure, Teppei scored again, setting an example for the team. However, this only fueled Daiki's determination, who responded with a jump shot. It seemed nothing could stop Daiki now. During a timeout, Kagami asked Hyuga to let him face Daiki one-on-one, wanting to defeat him on his own. Despite the high risk, Hyuga agreed to give Kagami 2 minutes to challenge Daiki. Back on the court, both Kagami and Teppei tried to defend Daiki together, but it was ineffective as Daiki scored again. Meanwhile, Izuki and Kuroko focused on Imayoshi, using deceptive gaze to bypass his defense. Just then, Daiki intervened, nearly causing the ball to go out of bounds, but Kuroko rushed to save it, falling down in the process. Teppei caught Kuroko's pass and scored with a layup, keeping the match highly competitive. Struggling to his feet, Kuroko continued the game, even though he felt his presence was no longer as crucial. He believed in Kagami's ability to defeat Daiki, recognizing him as Seirin's ace. However, as Daiki's aura grew stronger, Kagami found himself too passive, watching helplessly as Daiki scored repeatedly. Frustrated with his own inability to respond, Kagami despaired at his powerlessness, despite his teammates' trust and expectations. Under immense pressure, Kagami transformed. Just as Daiki was about to break through, Kagami quickly intercepted the ball, leaving Daiki stunned. Daiki turned to look at Kagami, whose eyes were devoid of emotion, mirroring his own. He realized Kagami had also entered the zone state. Over the next few minutes, they were ready for an intense showdown. Traditionally, fierce rivals Kagami and Daiki, both in the zone, were inseparable on the court. They had reached their peak, aware not only of each other but also clearly understanding everyone else's movements. The term unstoppable barely did justice to describe them. As Kagami went for a dunk, Daiki quickly jumped to block it. The ball then reached Sakurai, who passed it swiftly to Daiki. Daiki attempted a shot, which Kagami blocked with so much force that the ball flew toward the photographers, leaving them bewildered as it went out of bounds. The intensity of this match was beyond words. The deadlock was soon broken when Kagami made a shot, crossing the defense line. With less than a minute left, the score was 95-98, just a 3-point difference. Shoichi was shocked by Kagami's speed, which seemed even faster than Daiki's. Kagami's acceleration in such a short time was astonishing. Kagami faced Daiki again, and despite Daiki's efforts, he couldn't shake Kagami off. Shoichi realized that the zone had a time limit, and Daiki had exceeded his. However, Kagami displayed extraordinary leaping ability again, blocking the shot. Daiki was shocked at how high Kagami could still jump. As he landed, his mind went blank. Izuki caught the ball and passed it to Hyuga, who dribbled towards Gakuen's basket and quickly scored a layup, reducing the gap to just 1 point. Gakuen's coach thought about calling a timeout, but changed his mind after seeing Daiki's determined expression, now completely fired up. He let Daiki take charge. Sakurai picked up the ball and passed it to Shoichi, who, firmly believing in Daiki's supremacy, gave the ball back to him. Daiki then sprinted to the basket, and although Kagami defended tightly, Daiki used a quick move to shoot from behind the hoop, a technique he had used before, and of course the shot went in, restoring the 3-point lead with only 15 seconds left in the game. This truly was a critical moment. Even if Seirin tied the game with a 3-pointer, they would likely lose due to their lack of stamina for overtime. Seirin needed to score twice more to turn defeat into victory, or their previous efforts would be wasted. Izuki passed the ball to Teppei, who was tightly defended by Wakamatsu. Teppei had no choice but to pass to Kuroko. Kuroko, finding the right moment, passed to Hyuga, who was quickly blocked by Sakurai. Hyuga attempted to coordinate with Kuroko to shift Sakurai's focus, but the deceptive play failed and Hyuga was trapped again. At that moment, Kagami appeared behind Sakurai and Hyuga passed the ball to him. Kagami jumped for a dunk, but Daiki, not one to stand by, blocked it. Recalling Shintaro's advice that freedom of movement is crucial in midair, Kagami spotted Teppei under the basket and passed the ball to him. Teppei went up for the shot, and Wakamatsu jumped to defend, but ended up fouling by pushing. Teppei scored and was awarded an additional free throw, reviving Seirin's chances. However, if Teppei made the shot, the game would be tied, leading to overtime, which Seirin could not afford. Predictably, Teppei missed the shot. Hyuga decided to go for the rebound with Kagami, who, thanks to his superior jumping ability, secured the ball. He attempted a dunk, but Daiki blocked it again and threw the ball out. Everyone thought Seirin had lost. But then Shoichi was surprised to see Kuroko already running towards the ball. Confused, since Kagami had just caught the ball, he wondered if Kuroko trusted Daiki more than Kagami. Kuroko, catching the ball, seemed to respond to Shoichi's internal question, saying, "I trust them both," and made a long pass to Kagami. Kagami jumped for a dunk, and Daiki also jumped to intercept, but this time Daiki was slightly outmatched and watched as Kagami successfully dunked. The final whistle blew, and Seirin won by 1 point. Landing, Kagami raised his right hand high, declaring victory in a somewhat dramatic pose. Daiki was momentarily unable to react, unaccustomed to losing. Meanwhile, Kuroko nearly fell due to exhaustion, but Kagami quickly supported him. Kagami had now earned Daiki's recognition, and the two agreed to a rematch. Kuroko then requested a fist bump from Daiki, making up for a past regret from their middle school game. Though reluctant, Daiki complied, and his disdainful expression faded, revealing the smiling basketball player once again. After the game, everyone packed up, ready to head home. Riko suggested going out for a meal to relax, but money was tight. Kagami offered to host at his house, which was nearby, suggesting it would save money. When everyone arrived at Kagami's house, they were stunned. Kagami's place was enormous, starkly furnished with only basketballs and beds, making everyone wonder if all he cared about was eating, sleeping, and basketball. What a blockhead. As they were chatting, they suddenly realized Riko was missing. It turned out she had gone to the kitchen with some ingredients, which terrified everyone given her notorious cooking skills. Memories of her last culinary disaster during their training camp still made them queasy. But when Riko came out of the kitchen with a pot, everyone's expressions were mixed. At the moment she lifted the lid, the food seemed normal this time. However, the cunning Hyuga didn't trust appearances and had Kuroko taste it first. What could possibly go wrong, thought Kuroko, only to fish out a whole banana, peel and all, from the pot, startling everyone. Riko really dared to put anything in the pot, but Kuroko didn't mind. Seeing Kuroko eat, everyone else began to dig in, only to find strawberries, kiwi, and raspberries in the pot. It was truly bizarre. Kagami couldn't take it and stepped out onto the balcony for air. When he came back to his senses, Kuroko was beside him, chatting casually until Kuroko suddenly collapsed without warning, alarming Kagami. The next second, everyone else in the room also fell down. It turned out Riko had added nutritional supplements to the dish. Luckily, everyone just fell asleep and woke up after a while. Hyuga organized a quick departure. Shinji wanted to use the bathroom but mistakenly entered the bedroom where someone seemed to be lying on the bed. Driven by curiosity, he approached, but the person on the bed suddenly turned over. It was a completely naked blonde woman, startling Shinji so much that he scrambled out of the room. Before Hyuga could understand what was happening, the blonde woman walked out and passionately kissed Kagami upon seeing him. Everyone's jaws dropped. It turned out she was Alexandra, Kagami's mentor from America, who had arrived unannounced. Kagami was stunned and quickly handed her some clothes. After dressing, Alexandra sat down next to Riko. Just as Kagami was about to warn Riko to keep her distance, Alexandra kissed her, shocking Riko into reclusion. Alexandra, hearing that the whole Seirin team would be at the gym the next day, was intrigued and decided to join them. They went to watch a game featuring Shutoku, where Shintaro was undoubtedly the standout player, leading to an unquestionable win for Shutoku. It was Alexandra's first time watching a Generation of Miracles game, and she was impressed by the talents. After the game, she took Kagami to the court for extra training. Although Kagami was strong, he still fell short compared to the prodigies of the Generation of Miracles, especially someone like Murasakibara, who was much taller. Now that Tetsuya had joined Murasakibara's team, Kagami was even less of a match for them. So, Alexandra prepared to teach Kagami some unique techniques. Back at the gym, Seirin's team is down one player, Kuroko. Kuroko has gone to learn shooting from Daiki, which sounds incredible given that a pass-first player is tackling such a challenging skill. Daiki feels unprecedented pressure because Kuroko is so unskilled in shooting. Although frustrated, Daiki patiently coaches him until he can't hold back anymore and ends up physically sparring with Kuroko. This reminds Kuroko of their middle school days playing together. When Kuroko has the ball, his tactic fails, and he must shoot, which is the skill he needs to develop. After the intense training, Kagami feels sore, a sign that such rigorous training isn't ideal before a game, but time is limited, and he must master these skills quickly. although Alexandra's habit of not wearing clothes should really change, as it's proving too much for Kagami, a young man full of vigor. In the next game, Seirin faces Nakamiya. Everyone prepares diligently, and soon, it's game day. Seirin is ready, but Kuroko and Kagami, as key players, are rested to conserve energy and don't play initially. Seirin struggles. Hyuga's three-pointers are off. Rinosuke fails to secure rebounds, and Izuki's passes are intercepted. Nakamiya's defense is tight. With less than a minute left in the first quarter, Seirin trails by 9 points, 16-25. There are two reasons for Seirin's poor performance today: exhaustion from the intense game against Gakuen, and a bit of complacency after winning that game. As the situation on the court becomes more passive, Kuroko suggests Riko call a timeout, and she does. This gives the players a much-needed breather. Back in the locker room, Riko wants to discuss tactics, but Hyuga interrupts her. He pulls out the list of teams still in the competition, only 32 schools left, all formidable. To become Japan's #1, they must be fully alert. Hyuga then suggests Riko motivate the team in her own way. Riko swings her arm, leaving a red mark on each player's face with her strong slap. Though it stings, it's effective. The team returns to the court invigorated. Izuki passes to Rinosuke, who then passes to Teppei for an easy 2 points. The bench cheers loudly, and Hyuga's three-pointers become unstoppable again. The game ends 83-77 in favor of Seirin. They advance to the second round of the Winter Cup. While teams with players from the Generation of Miracles also move forward, ready for the third round. The third round begins with Kagami and Kuroko playing. The team's coordination is seamless, and the games go smoothly. Seirin reaches the semifinals, but then something incredible happens. Yosen High School surprisingly held their opponents to 0 points in a 40-minute game, which is quite impressive. After Yosen's game, Alexandra encountered Tetsuya in the hall. She wanted to give him a passionate kiss, but Tetsuya refused. They then had a private conversation where Alexandra told Tetsuya that she had taught all her basketball skills to Kagami as well, and hoped for a good showdown between them on the court. Tetsuya was undaunted, but wished that Alexandra would not always treat him like a child. Back at school, the Seirin team watched Yosen's game video and were shocked by their oppressive defense, describing it as an impregnable wall. This indicated that the upcoming game would be tough. Meanwhile, at Yosen High School, they were also watching Seirin's game footage, particularly noting the dynamic duo of Kagami and Kuroko. Seirin and Yosen are teams of completely opposite styles. Seirin excels in offense while Yosen excels in defense, setting the stage for an intriguing clash. Under Daiki's guidance, Kuroko's shooting accuracy has improved significantly. Kuroko focused too much on deceptive passes previously, neglecting shooting. Now, shifting focus back, his shooting accuracy naturally improved. Combining passing and shooting could make Kuroko Seirin's new trump card. The day of the match against Yosen High School arrived, with Kagami facing Tetsuya again, fulfilling their earlier promise to settle scores in this game. However, Yosen's players are generally much taller than Seirin's, creating a daunting presence. As the game started, Murasakibara used his height and impressive jumping ability to go for the ball, but was called for a foul because he touched the ball before it reached its highest point, which was an exaggeration of his abilities, almost supernatural. Seirin then took possession, and Izuki started with quick passes, quickly getting the ball to Hyuga. Hyuga attempted a three-pointer, but Murasakibara blocked it easily with his long arms and legs, ideal for defense. Seirin then initiated Plan B, using lateral passes to catch Yosen off guard, relying on Kuroko's passing skills. Everything went smoothly, and Kagami received the ball for a jump shot. However, Murasakibara, seemingly teleporting, blocked Kagami's shot. Despite Kagami's excellent jumping ability, he couldn't overcome Murasakibara, whose speed was unaffected by his size, making a breakthrough difficult. Yosen High School, known for its powerful defense, had less than 20 seconds remaining, with the score at 18-0, and Seirin High School hadn't scored a single point. Is Seirin really going to be completely shut out? If they can't score in the first quarter, it would be a huge psychological blow to the Seirin players. This is where Yosen's defensive strategy shines the brightest, using an overwhelming score advantage to break the opponent's morale. They perfectly exemplified the strategy of defeating the mind before the body. The current situation on the court left Seirin players somewhat helpless, with Teppei, the elder statesman of Seirin, choosing this moment to step up. He leaped with all his might, breaking through the defense of two players to grab the rebound. Just then, the whistle for the end of the first quarter blew. Yosen's plan to score was thwarted, and Seirin managed to claw back a bit. During the halftime break, Rico explained Yosen's tactics to everyone, which involved a 3-2 zone defense. Murasaki Bara was in the middle, his height and speed allowing him to cover the entire court, while the other 4 Yosen players guarded the perimeter, making their defense seem impregnable. Although Murasaki Bara is very strong, relying solely on him for inside defense carries certain risks, and this was exactly the breakthrough Seirin needed. Now was the time for Kuroko's special shooting training to be put to use. Kuroko was Seirin's secret weapon for a surprising victory. At this moment, Momoi arrived with Aomine to watch the game, but both were truly shocked by the score. Seirin had been completely dominated in the first quarter. Murasaki Bara was truly ruthless, but Aomine was more concerned with the fact that Seirin was being suppressed so heavily, despite their strong offense. The second quarter had already started, and Yosen's defense remained unbreakable. Izuki, with the ball, couldn't find any openings, making the situation very tense. Even so, Aomine believed that Seirin would eventually turn the game around and deliver a heavy blow to Yosen. At this time, Teppei and Murasaki Bara were in a deadlock under Yosen's basket. Just then, Teppei took a jump shot, and naturally Murasaki Bara wouldn't give him any opportunities, his large hand reaching straight for the basketball. Do you think Teppei is recklessly courageous? Teppei quickly flipped the ball, and Kagami suddenly appeared behind Murasaki Bara, ready to slam dunk. This combined dunk move was seamless, but the next second saw a reversal. They still lost to Murasaki Bara's speed. No other choice now, they had to use their trump card. Kagami passed the ball to Kuroko under the basket, shocking everyone as Kuroko posed to shoot. This was impossible, since Kuroko only passes. Although Murasaki Bara quickly turned to defend, Aomine on the sidelines saw through it all. Murasaki Bara couldn't stop it, because the ball would vanish. Sure enough, Kuroko's phantom shot shattered all of Murasaki Bara's illusions. Kuroko's shooting debut went smoothly, and Seirin scored for the first time in the game. Murasaki Bara didn't expect his first points lost would be to Kuroko, thinking he had been careless. The shooting posture baffled him, as it was too unconventional to counter. They only saw how impressive the shot was, not knowing how much effort Kuroko had put into it. This move became Seirin's winning strategy. Now, the game turned around, Yosen switched to offense, but all were guarded by Seirin players. Only Okamura had a chance. Fukui passed to Okamura, Kagami tried to block, but Okamura's strength was too great, he couldn't defend, and watched Okamura score. Okamura's basket quickly reversed the earlier advantage, but they again overlooked Kuroko. Kuroko used his vanishing dribble to quickly pass the defense, then faked to force a quick retreat, and passed to Hyuga during a defensive gap. Hyuga made a crucial three-pointer, turning the game again. But Kuroko alone wasn't enough, Kagami needed to join. Now Kagami was subdued by Okamura, unable to use his full strength, which was frustrating. Watching Okamura score continuously, Kagami became anxious. Then, Teppei suggested Kagami lower his stance, but Kagami couldn't grasp the meaning. Regardless, they had to proceed. With Kuroko's dribbling boost, Izuki successfully scored. Kagami still struggled with defense, pondering Teppei's advice until he realized lowering his center of gravity could limit Okamura's range. Teppei watched Kagami's footwork. His expression finally relaxed, Okamura's shooting accuracy dropped, and Kagami finally blocked a shot. Teppei took the rebound and passed to Mibuchi. Murasaki Bara quickly defended. Hyuga, knowing he couldn't shoot, passed to Kuroko as Murasaki Bara jumped to defend. Murasaki Bara turned to defend Kuroko again, aiming to secure this one. But once more, he lost to Kuroko's phantom shot. The second quarter ended. The score was 29-17. Although still trailing, Seirin's strength was gradually showing. During halftime, Yosen and Seirin strategized for the second half. Yosen, led by Murasaki Bara and Himuro, continued their triangle offense. Seirin decided to temporarily bench Kuroko, since his misdirection pass needed cooling down, and the phantom shot shouldn't be overused to avoid predictability. Kagami focused on Himuro, Teppei on Murasaki Bara. Before Kuroko returned, They had to contain these key players. Despite Yosen's strength, Seirin was at a disadvantage. But Kuroko was confident in Kagami and the team. Seirin was set to win this game. The third quarter began. Kagami immediately faced Himuro. The final showdown they agreed on in America was finally happening today. Both looked very determined, promising an exciting duel. Himuro posed to shoot, and Kagami quickly jumped to defend. Unexpectedly, it was a fake move. In mid-air, Kagami couldn't react in time, and Himuro quickly moved past him. Seeing this, Hyuga rushed to defend, creating a double team with Kagami against Himuro. However, Himuro stopped abruptly and made a jump shot, scoring right in front of Kagami. The speed was too fast for Kagami and Hyuga, and even the audience didn't catch it. While everyone was guessing about Himuro's last move, Riko pointed out the key. Himuro had simply used a quick stop and jump shot. His smooth movements and speed were too fast to react to. Himuro again used a fake to confuse Kagami and scored another jump shot. Surprisingly, although Kagami had attempted to block, the ball seemed to disappear, and by the time Kagami realized, it had already scored. Emotions seemed to be getting in the way. Kagami was caught between brotherhood and the game. Under these circumstances, Kagami was temporarily benched to cool down. Now, Teppei was the key player, tasked with defending Murasakibara to give Seirin a chance. Facing Teppei, Murasakibara couldn't understand his passionate approach, knowing he was outmatched but still fiercely competing. This only made Murasakibara more determined to crush Teppei. But Teppei found joy in striving toward his goals, not seeing it as forced. Teppei seized an opportunity for a layup, which Murasakibara hurriedly blocked. Izuki quickly moved to catch the ball, which then went back to Teppei. Unexpectedly, Teppei, the center, made a precise three-pointer, creating a breach in Yosen's ironclad defense. A comeback was just a matter of time. Though Teppei's three-pointer was unexpected, Yosen didn't take it lightly. Soon after, Himuro responded with a shot to match Teppei's. However, Seirin wasn't relying solely on Teppei's threes. After all, Hyuga was the specialist. Those were just a setup, as Seirin was about to get serious. Then Teppei quickly shifted roles to point guard, confusing Yosen's players, who didn't know how to respond. Murasakibara was still alert, knowing that stopping Teppei could suppress Seirin. Teppei then faked a shot from mid-backcourt, knowing the ball would rise high, forcing even the tall Murasakibara to jump to intercept. Taking advantage of this, Teppei passed to Izuki, who quickly made a layup. Though Murasakibara was fast, he was in the air, unable to defend. Teppei then followed up with an alley-oop, gaining another 2 points for Seirin. With the game flowing smoothly for Seirin, Murasakibara made a judgment error, exposing gaps for Teppei and Izuki to exploit. Izuki, reaching Yosen's basket but facing double defense, passed back to Hyuga on the outside. With weaker defense on him, Hyuga naturally sank a three-pointer. The score was now 37-28, down to a single-digit margin, prompting Yosen to call for a timeout, likely to strategize anew. Teppei was so exhausted he couldn't speak. After playing as point guard on offense and center on defense, his workload was enormous. Seeing Teppei's all-out effort, Kagami finally decided to set aside his brotherhood with Himuro. He handed his necklace, a symbol of their bond, to Kuroko to throw away. Kuroko was confused, but Kagami explained it was to clear his mind. It seemed Kagami truly awakened. The game continued. Kagami faced Himuro directly. Himuro tried to trick Kagami with a fake, but Kagami read through it and intercepted the ball. Izuki then took it, starting a fast break with Kagami, who was headed towards Yosen's basket. But Murasakibara posed a problem with his simple and brutal defense, making it hard to break through. Kagami tried to use his leaping ability for a powerful dunk, but underestimated Murasakibara's jumping reach. Kagami failed, and the ball went back to Teppei. But Teppei got stuck, defended by 3 players, and lost the ball while hesitating. Himuro quickly got the ball and sped to Seirin's basket. Kagami rushed back in defense, but as Himuro started his jump shot, Kagami slipped on sweat. He quickly recovered and jumped again, but it was too late. The ball was on its trajectory. However, the turnaround came quickly. Kagami touched the ball. Himuro's shot was disrupted and didn't go in. Seirin swiftly grabbed the rebound and went into fast break mode again. The ball returned to Teppei, but the triple defense wasn't broken yet. He had to pass to Izuki, who looked around and saw all teammates were marked. Taking a chance, he shot. As Murasakibara jumped to block, a hand appeared over his head. It was Teppei, who grabbed the ball and dunked it forcefully, giving Murasakibara no chance to breathe. Murasakibara was stunned, increasingly puzzled by Teppei. Despite Teppei's heavy exertion causing knee pain, he nearly fell, but told Riko he was fine and wanted to keep going, inspiring everyone. Now the score was 37-30,